Chapter 51 The Shadow of the Silver Demon King's Dark Fairy Tale Master. That damn ghost dares to be so rude to you. You must not let him go like this. I want to summon thunder and lightning, otherwise I don't believe that it can't kill him. Legend has it that ghosts are afraid of thunder. After dinner, the young wizards headed towards the dormitory, led by the prefects of each college. At this moment, Roman has returned to the tower where he lives. Roman has not said anything about Elizabeth's angry remarks. Wednesday, who was following him, poured cold water on him. Do you think you are smarter than Roman? Don't you think Roman has thought about Thunder's method of dealing with ghosts? Seeing that Roman didn't say anything, it was obvious that Wednesday was right. However, the appearance of this girl with whom the master had a difficult relationship made Elizabeth furious, and her soft voice became violent and sharp at this moment. Shut up, you little bitch. Then I will burn the entire Hogwarts to the ground and let that old man Dumbledore drive away all those damn ghosts. On Wednesday, however, he did not back down and snorted coldly. Then the master who helped him became the Silver Demon King in the eyes of the wizarding world again. Fake. Then I'm much better than you, a maid who can't even do magic and can only serve tea and pour water. A cold murderous intent suddenly appeared in Wednesday's black eyes. At this moment, a calm voice interrupted the quarrel between the two. Enough. Roman paused for a moment and looked back at the tense situation. His eyes were calm and there was no emotion in his voice. However, they all felt that there was no doubt about it. Arguing is the most meaningless thing in the world. Finding problems and solving them is what we need to face. Back at his residence, Roman's current physical condition does not require much rest. In front of them on Wednesday, he started his busy business. Although these ghosts in Hogwarts are indeed undead with real soul states, they are still different from the ordinary ghosts encountered in the outside world. Roman waved his hands. After his transformation, in the residence with a spacious internal folding space, text symbols suddenly appeared in midair. The magical text and picture information are constantly changing in the void, just like the holographic projection screen in a science fiction movie. In the blink of an eye, Roman has already sorted out most of the research and work that needs to be done next. Whether it's Bloody Barrow or nearly Headless Nick, they were all wizards during their lifetimes, and they were still powerful wizards. In addition, they had strong psychological fluctuations when they died, and the special nature of their environment. It's what makes them special ghosts. As Roman said this, he couldn't help but think of Cuthbert Binns, the professor of history of magic who still teaches at Hogwarts even today, who is a very powerful ghost. He looked back and looked confused, not knowing what he wanted to express. Roman's eyes shone with the cold light of reason. Before we want to find a way to kill the ghosts of Hogwarts, the first thing we need to do is to understand what death is. Walter, meanwhile, in Dumbledore's headmaster's office. Albus, I always felt that Roman was a little strange today, especially at the end of dinner. I have a very strong intuition that Mr. Barrow must have really annoyed him, Professor McGonagall said worriedly. As the person closest to Roman at the time, Dumbledore naturally felt Roman's suppressed anger at that time. Although, like Professor McGonagall, Roman has already thought that Roman will secretly prepare revenge for this incident. However, Dumbledore still had a good smile on his face. Minerva, relax. Barrow is a ghost after all, and he is still a ghost bound to Hogwarts. As long as Hogwarts is not destroyed, even if he is seriously injured by Roman, he can recover quickly. Dumbledore said with a smile. He believed that Roman would definitely attack the Bloodman Barrow, but he wanted to kill him. I'm sorry, even he, the White Wizard, couldn't kill the Bloodman Barrow who had become a ghost. At most, it can severely injure the opponent, causing the opponent to hide in a dark corner of the academy for a period of time and recover slowly. Compared to this, Minerva, Roman did not take action directly today, or in other words, did not break up with us because of this matter, but it made me relax a little. It seems that he has no intention of targeting us. At least it seems that for Harry's training plan, we don't have to worry about any interference he will cause us. McGonagall looked at Dumbledore speechlessly, who didn't care about the Bloody Barrow at all, even though she knew that what the other party said was indeed to the point. However, there are too many incredible things that happened to Roman. What if he found a way to kill the Hogwarts ghost? However, when the time came to the next day, Professor McGonagall simply forgot about the Bloodman Barrow. In Transfiguration class, looking at almost half of the little wizards in the classroom, they all looked sleepy, as if they hadn't slept all night. Professor McGonagall, who is particularly serious about teaching and classrooms, was trembling with anger on the spot. It makes no sense. Merlin gave you such a precious opportunity to come to Hogwarts to learn magic, and you. The first day, just the first day, you all looked like this. God, I think you have to give me an explanation. Mr. Malfoy, give me a reason. Professor McGonagall was holding a wand in his hand, and Draco even felt that the other party was going to turn himself into a golden mouse in the next moment. The original sleepiness also dissipated instantly. After standing up nervously, he glanced around, and finally stammered what happened last night. Sorry Professor, I had a nightmare last night, and I haven't fallen asleep since then. I dreamed about the Silver Demon King. Professor McGonagall, who was about to get angry, was choked in his throat when the scolding came to his lips. Seeing these present, the little wizards who lowered their heads in shame didn't know what to say for a while. She has always worried that Roman will bully and torture these little wizards in the academy, or simply go crazy and have bloodshed. And when he found out that Roman was not so bottomless, he was also relieved. However, looking at most of these little wizards with dark circles under their eyes, Professor McGonagall finally realized a problem. A very serious problem. Even though Roman has not yet taken action, the dark fairy tales of the Silver Devil that these little wizards have grown up with have left a deep psychological shadow on Roman for all of them. A little witch even whimpered and cried on the spot. Professor McGonagall, I want to go home. The Silver Devil will definitely eat me. The Silver Devil likes to eat little witches the most. Mom and Dad said so. Professor McGonagall. Chapter 52 Teaching Little Wizard Spells? Hogwarts, in Dumbledore's headmaster's office. Immersed in their Dharma temple, all night, studying the possible connection between the soul and the magic power, thinking of Roman who can find out the essential reason for the special ghost wizards of Hogwarts. Early in the morning, he was summoned to the office by Dumbledore. In the office at this moment, Roman was slightly shocked. In addition to Dumbledore, his parents, Aunt Dina, and godfather Newt Scamander are all here, and Professor McGonagall, who was supposed to teach the transformation course for little wizards today. He was actually standing in the office with a complicated look on his face, as if he was also waiting for him. Oh, my little Roman, are you really not going back to the American wizarding world with us? The U.S. Ministry of Magic is willing to let you be the head of Nevermore College. Although she is a witch, her mother Queenie is a very clear, traditional family-centered woman. This has not changed even though Roman's father, Jacob, is only a male. The fat Jacob also came over. Yeah, son. Even though Nevermore Academy is not a magic school, there are many magic races gathered there. I even saw a werewolf for the first time there. God. Roman shook his head slightly. He knew Nevermore College. In the original Wednesday's plot, the freak school that the other party entered later was Nevermore College. However, Nevermore College can only be said to be a gathering place for freaks. Saying it's an academy, Roman really can't approve it. Moreover, the help that can be given to what I am studying is extremely limited. Seeing that Roman still refused, the Jacobs suddenly had no choice. His eyes couldn't help but look towards Newt. The latter, after taking a look at Roman, shook his head gently. Give up, even I can't change what this child has decided, Newt said, looking at Roman with a solemn expression. We don't have to force you to return to the American wizarding world, but don't do anything to worry your parents and us. As long as you don't take the initiative to provoke other people, you will not be in any danger in the British wizarding world. Roman nodded, then looked at Dumbledore who had been silent. So, does Professor Dumbledore have anything else to do with me? Dumbledore coughed dryly and looked at Professor McGonagall beside him. Professor Roman, although you are a little weird, I think we urgently need to change your image in the hearts of the little wizards. After Professor McGonagall explained the situation of the little wizards today, before Roman could say anything, Queenie, who doted on Roman's son, was the first to express her dissatisfaction. This is simply ridiculous. This kind of request, this kind of thing is simply unacceptable. Why should I ask my son to change? It was just a stupid call made up by their stupid wizards. This is simply too much. There is no need for Roman to solve this matter. This Professor McGonagall, I am still very good at amnestics. Just let me wave my wand lightly, and make sure you fragile little wizards have a sweet night. Queenie said angrily, and on the side, Roman's father Jacob also nodded. Yes, my wife is a top telegrapher registered with the United States Ministry of Magic for many years. For her, this kind of thing is a piece of cake. However, the words of the two people directly shocked Professor McGonagall. I'm sorry, Mrs. Kulski. In our British wizarding community, it is a serious offense to use spells such as the Dimensioning Curse on others. McGonagall didn't even dare let the dangerous American wizard speak. He looked eagerly at Roman aside. Professor Roman, regarding this matter, I have discussed with Professor Dumbledore a solution that we think is feasible. Roman smiled and nodded. Appreciate further details. Professor McGonagall took a deep breath. You said before that you would set up special courses at Hogwarts and serve as professors. I think that regarding this time, we can make it as early as possible. I think that with your strength, if you teach these little wizards something casually, or show some magical magic, the little wizard's impression of you will be quickly reversed. Hearing this, Roman raised his eyebrows and looked at Dumbledore who was sitting in his seat. Dumbledore spoke immediately. If there is any need during teaching, I can give you full support. I think the school board will never object to this. And if Roman you are really willing to teach some of your new methods. If you're under a spell, I think they'd even be happy to see their children near you. Roman does not deny this. The curse that I am currently studying has already exceeded the level of this world itself. Whether it is the basic theory of magic, magic words, or the control operation of magic power, it is not an exaggeration to say that it has reached another system, and he didn't mean to be self-conscious. One of the reasons why I am able to achieve what I am today is due to my own hard work and long-term dedication. But more importantly, it is the huge support given to me by Dharma Temple. When it comes to research in the field of magic, his brain seems to be blessed by gods. Researching and learning things are extremely fast. But if it were these young wizards at Hogwarts who were learning, the situation would be completely different. The corners of Roman's mouth raised slightly. There is no problem in teaching them spells. I can even teach them how to prepare potions and alchemy. But, Principal Dumbledore, I have a lot of rules. Dumbledore nodded. Of course, everyone has their own rules. I think the school board will give you enough respect for this. Of course, the premise is as long as no one is killed. Roman naturally had no problem with this, and countless interesting things suddenly came to his mind. Finally, I talked with my Aunt Tina about the future production of magic potions by the Society of Truth, and asked her to give an explanation when she returned to the United States Ministry of Magic. Roman's parents finally set off to return to the American wizarding world under the leadership of their godfather Newt. Standing at the gate of Hogwarts, looking at the carriage flying in the distance, Roman was holding the suitcase that his godfather had folded to give himself the space before leaving. There are also some new and magical animals cultivated by the other party. However, Roman's eyes were fixed on the magical animal dragging the carriage towards the distance. Thestrals. Damn it, how could I forget this magical animal? Chapter 53 Hogwarts Demon King Advanced Class. A wizard who doesn't want to be a devil, not a good Death Eater. Thestrals. Among the magical animals, one of the few magical creatures that is associated with death and is regarded as an ominous existence. Only wizards who have experienced death and have seen people die in front of them can see magical creatures. The moment Roman saw the other person, he immediately thought of the ghost problem he was studying. Death is such an invisible and intangible strange existence. How can we study it? Roman has never had a clear clue. Originally, I planned to start from the level of the soul. But now, there is no doubt that compared to the research on the soul level, Roman is not yet sophisticated in the field of magical creatures. It is said that Roman is the second in the world, and absolutely no one can be called the first in the world. Even his godfather, the world-renowned magizoologist, Newt Scamander, is definitely not as good as he is today. Professor Roman, regarding the teaching matter, please come up with a method as soon as possible. It is best to attract these little wizards to actively sign up for learning. In this regard, I think you can work more closely with Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick. Let's talk. They are already seniors. Watching Dumbledore urging himself on, Roman naturally knew what the other party meant. In terms of research and improvement of curses, even Dumbledore must be inferior to him to a certain extent. And if Harry Potter could learn something truly powerful from himself, it will also be easier to deal with Voldemort in the future. Roman smiled, with a hint of sinisterness and schadenfreude that Dumbledore couldn't see. At this time, he was completely sure that Dumbledore didn't know exactly where Voldemort was. Professor Quirrell's hiding place is also really good. However, with my own participation, the next thing will definitely become a lot more interesting. Haha, of course there is no problem with this. However, before that, I need Principal Dumbledore to use your power as the principal. I need to carve out a large open space near the Forbidden Forest to use as my teaching venue. Roman's efficiency is frighteningly fast. Just when Dumbledore and the others completed the relevant procedures for Roman, and easily completed the registration declaration with the Ministry of Magic on the side of the Ministry of Magic and the Hogwarts Board of Trustees, when the relevant approval documents were sent to Roman by owl at night, it was early the next morning. On some important bulletin boards throughout Hogwarts, bulletins were posted one after another. Look, Merlin is here. The Silver Demon King actually wants to offer courses. Oh, sure enough, the Advanced Theory course of Black Magic, the structure of magical creatures, and the blood course of wizards. What kind of evil things are these? Nick, who was almost frowning, was floating, with a surprised and exaggerated expression on his face. Beside him, the little wizards who had just walked out of the restaurant also saw the announcement. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Demon King Advanced Class. Lecturer Professor Roman Goldstein-Kalski, President of the Society of Truth, 13 years Senior Prisoner of Azkaban, Silver Devil, 4-star Potion Master of the United States Ministry of Magic, Honorary Headmaster of Hogwarts. Dear Wizards and Wizards of Hogwarts, in view of Professor Dumbledore's repeated invitations and the joint request of the school board, from today on, the Hogwarts Demon Lord Advanced Class is officially established. This Demon King Advanced Class has no entry threshold. Whether you are a first-year wizard, a sixth-year graduate preparing for the wizard exam, or a professor at school, you can participate in the study. The Demon King's Advanced Class teaches all the magic theories, potion principles, or magical biology-related content that has never been seen in the wizarding world. Most of the courses involve black magic, curses, and biological anatomy. If there is a possibility of feeling physical discomfort, please choose to fill in the form. Everyone who registers, whether they are young wizards, professors at school, or other adult wizards outside of school, must fully abide by the classroom rules. You will understand the specific content by yourself. Violation of the rules will result in necessary punishment. The degree depends on my mood. The advanced version of the Demon King offers courses: Advanced Theory of Black Magic, Anatomy of Magical Creatures, Wizard Blood Research, Magical Creature Transformation, Advanced Theory of Magic Potions, Alchemy of the Demon King. Note: this Demon King advanced class is not interested in the identity and goals of the teaching target, and encourages any wizard who wants to become a great Demon King. Death Eaters can also participate in the study. Harry Potter and others looked at it, and they couldn't understand the content at all, as well as announcements, animated pictures full of visual impact. Vomit. The moment a young wizard looked at the announcement, there was a picture of Roman standing in front of a bloody, completely dismembered creature that looked like a horse, with a smile on his face. Unable to bear it any longer, he instantly vomited out all the breakfast he had just eaten in the restaurant. Oh my god. That's disgusting. I will never sign up for such a course. What kind of advanced Demon Lord class? Apart from the Silver Demon Lord, who else in this world would be proud of becoming a Demon Lord? Right, Harry? Ronald turned his head away with a disgusted look on his face. Harry also looked uncomfortable when he saw the content on the bulletin board. At this moment, such a reaction was very common among the young wizards present. What is she? Is this guy crazy? Also, why would Principal Dumbledore allow such a guy to open such a course? How cruel. Draco also frowned. If Roman dares to issue such an announcement in such a grand manner, it must have been approved by the school board of directors and the principal. However, he doesn't understand. Why would his father agree to such a ridiculous thing? However, Hermione, who had also had breakfast and was preparing to go to class with a thick book in her arms, happened to be here. Seeing this scene, she immediately expressed her dissatisfaction. This is science. Why do you think it's cruel? Could it be that the meat you just ate for breakfast was made by killing animals? She comes from a mole family, and her father, Mr. Granger, is a dentist. Similar medical anatomy diagrams like this are not common, but there is nothing wrong with them. However, when such shocking words fell into the ears of these little wizards, they seemed to have said some shocking and terrifying words. Everyone moved away. Even Harry and Ronald took a step back. Draco stepped forward, looking disgusted and disgusted. Well, who do I think can say such disgusting words? It turns out to be you, a dirty mudblood who has no regard for life and is unreasonable. Merlin looks like he is really taking a nap, otherwise he would not let you do this. This kind of guy has the chance to become a wizard. However, on Draco's side, he was spewing venom. A sound of panic and shock suddenly came from the window on one side of the castle. Zeshite. Look, the Forbidden Forest. Beyond the Forbidden Forest, a palace has grown underground. Above Merlin. Chapter 54. I am Silverlord. Bout of a Demon King. New book asking for flower reviews and monthly tickets. A palace growing out of the ground. Such a voice, even if it happened in a magic school like Hogwarts, is simply unbelievable. People like Harry Potter who didn't know much about the wizarding world couldn't believe it, and the descendants of pureblood wizards in Slytherin like Draco couldn't believe it at all. However, look at those clustered around the glass window. While looking out the window, the little wizards exclaimed again and again. Even Ronald couldn't help but ignore his pair of prank-loving twin brothers. Among them, he ran over quickly with a puzzled look on his face. Now away. The sound of swallowing saliva came from everyone one after another the moment they came to the window. Everyone's brains have completely lost the ability to think at the moment they saw the scene outside the window and felt the intense trembling of the floor under their feet. Through the window, I saw a place close to the Forbidden Forest. On a huge open space, a figure opened its hands. Above the left hand is a dark green light that makes people feel extremely disturbed, and the right hand is a creepy black shadow. While the ground trembled, accompanied by the rolling of earth and rocks, like an earth dragon turning over, huge buildings that were completely different from the Hogwarts buildings began to gather and stand tall. Merlin, sir, on the outskirts of the Forbidden Forest, Dumbledore and other Hogwarts professors rushed here immediately when they heard that Roman was going to build a palace of his own with bare hands. Then, there was the scene in front of me. Professor Flitwick's small body was trembling with fright at the sight of the gigantic prototype of the palace that had risen in the blink of an eye, and he didn't know what to say. The wand in his hand fell to the ground, and he didn't even notice it. God, is this really what the Transfiguration curse can cause? Professor McGonagall was also a little unsteady at the moment, and Professor Clowney, who was in charge of divination, trembling and supporting each other, was able to barely stand on the spot. However, that pale face, and that big mouth. But it has already made them lose their image as the top wizards of Hogwarts. Crack, click. The sound of trees breaking, accompanied by the sound of earth and rocks collapsing, echoed throughout Hogwarts, causing the magical creatures in the entire Forbidden Forest to tremble. In just 10 minutes, what Drummond calls the so-called teaching venue, in the dark green and pitch black magical energy, the main body gradually emerged. Hiss. Is this an angel, or a demon? Mrs. Hooch, who was in charge of the flying lessons, screamed. With a white beard and long hair, Dumbledore, who was fluttering restlessly in the strong wind induced by magic power, slowly raised his head, and a pair of pupils full of dignity shrank suddenly. In the line of sight, there are only one left and one right. A demon with a height of more than 100 meters, holding a ferocious giant sword in his hand, and an angel with 4 pairs of wings, standing on one left and one on the right, are the main building of this palace. However, what made the hearts of Dumbledore and others feel like being pinched was that at this moment, the demons and angels on the left and right all bowed their heads obediently, stretched out a hand, and held something in the air. It was a huge roulette floating in mid-air without any support. In the hollowed-out roulette, the azure blue magic power converges into a bright sun, and a huge golden gear rotates inside. A sense of icy majesty of truth rushed over. Such a miraculous scene was seen by the professors and students of the whole Hogwarts. They saw that without the support of the flying broom, they flew into the void with the support of dark magic power. While waving the magic energy in his hands, through the incomprehensible transfiguration technique of these little wizards of Hogwarts, the palace was transformed into a splendid palace, and the outside was covered with a layer of floor tiles with strange patterns. Is this really magic? I don't know who it was, and murmured this question that made everyone feel endlessly confused. Among these young wizards, Hermione, who was the most loyal admirer of Roman and had seen Roman cast magic in battle, was the first to react, turned her head, and ran towards the outside quickly. The sudden sound of footsteps brought everyone present to their senses. Next moment, even the little Slytherin wizards who expressed their dislike for the Silver Demon Lord Roman Kulski before and said they would never sign up for his courses seemed to feel some kind of call. They crowded around like crazy and ran towards the outside. As soon as he ran out of the castle, the rumbling ground trembled, accompanied by a gust of cold energy, causing all the little wizards to lower their heads under pressure. Their hair was flying wantonly in the strong wind, and at this moment, they couldn't help but have the urge to kneel down and pay homage to the nearly completed demon god's palace in their eyes. The figure of Roman stood in midair, and the standing position happened to be the empty space held by the angel and the demon. It was small, but it seemed as tall as a god. At this scene, even Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts and known as the greatest white wizard of this century, was completely shocked. Roman is standing in the void at this moment. For some reason, it is obviously far away. Little wizards like Hermione and the others were hundreds of meters away from Roman, and could only vaguely see a small figure of Roman. However, for some unknown reason, the sound of Roman came to my ears. Everyone couldn't help but remember the expression on Roman's face when he spoke at the moment. It's like communicating face to face with the other person. I am Silver Lord. I am the Silver Devil, standing here today with the truth wrapped in it. If you want to hold the ropes of your own destiny, stealing the light of Jesus, or rob Satan of his destructive power, bow to the truth, bow to wisdom, then bow to the Demon King. The loud voice seemed to carry some kind of magical power, and under the urging of the huge rotating eye of truth behind Roman, it spread throughout the entire British wizarding world in an instant. In the ears of all the wizards, there was a deafening sound. British Ministry of Magic. The high-level members of the Ministry of Magic who were in a meeting walked towards the window stiffly, as if they had turned into marionettes. In the distant sky, the extremely unreasonable clouds, a bright magical eye slowly looked at them, and after a while, one's knee slowly touched the ground. Long live the Silver Demon King. Chapter 55. The Silver Devil is teaching, and the Ministry of Magic is on strike. Please subscribe. Gudadu. The Palace of Truth. Although Romani got this name, the name that is widely circulated throughout the British wizarding world today is the Palace of the Silver Devil, and it took only one day for Roman to complete the construction of the Palace of Truth. Under the influence of his full power explosion, which even required a period of weakness, he didn't even need to do anything about the Daily Prophet, just to prepare himself, the Silver Demon King, to teach. It spread throughout the British wizarding world. The sound of magic potion cooking, accompanied by bursts of strange medicinal fragrance, spread on the top floor of the Palace of Truth at this moment. Since this place was built, Roman simply moved out of the tower where he originally lived, the heart of the Thestral. Feeling that the more than 70 kinds of mixed magic potions in the medicine pot in front of him were almost boiled, Roman waved his hand, and the next moment a dark magic surged, and a big black hand emerged, dragging a bloody potion. Heart slowly came to the top of the medicine pot. With a plop sound, the complete and fresh heart fell into the medicine pot. And now at Roman's feet, a skinny horse with a pair of strange bat wings was falling to the ground weakly, its body having lost its due life fluctuations. Thestrals, a magical creature regarded as evil and ominous by wizards, have extremely high flying speed and attack power. Another reason why they are famous is that the core of the Elder Wand, one of the Deathly Hallows, is made of the tail hair of this magical creature. But it's a pity that Roman has long lost his need and interest in things like magic wands. A casual wave. The next moment, a deep dark passage suddenly opened above the floor. Yeki's body also fell into it instantly, and as the black hole disappeared and closed, it completely disappeared. Just as Roman was carefully looking at the latest potion that Wu Chi-san had researched, a burst of footsteps came. Wednesday, with some difficulty, piled stacks of documents on the long black and gold table beside him. The Gothic makeup is full of expressions of lovelessness at this moment. Dear Professor Roman, as you wish. Basically the entire British wizarding world has heard the news that you are going to start a class, and nearly 4,000 people have signed up, and these are just outside of Hogwarts. Wizard, are you sure you want to teach your powerful magic to these people? You know, there are definitely many people who come to take your class who want to tear you into pieces. Roman smiled slightly. There was no trace of concern on his face. This was something that Wednesday could not understand. In other words, there were absolutely few people in the entire wizarding world who could understand his thoughts. Even behind his back, there were probably a lot of people who called him a fool. Glancing at the table, it was 3 to 4 meters high, but it was just a registration form sent by wizards outside Hogwarts. The smile on Roman's face became stronger and stronger. Now, a certain great white wizard is very distressed. Dumbledore's office. In front of the pensive, Dumbledore's body was swaying slightly tiredly, and he sat back in his office chair. Through the window behind him, he could clearly see the terrifying aura that was exuding, which was 100 meters high, as if the entire Hogwarts magic the Palace of Truth ruled by the school. An unprecedented feeling of powerlessness and regret spread in my heart. Out of control. Things got completely out of control. Originally, he only wanted to let Roman open a course at Hogwarts or something, so that the members of the Order of the Phoenix under his command, or Harry Potter and others who were part of the future plan, could gain more power. However, he never thought of it. Roman, the Silver Demon King, really has no trace of Loki in his style of doing things. It had only been a few days since the group lust overturned the entire British wizarding world. People's terrifying memories of the Silver Devil have not even had time to fade away. The terrifying Eye of Truth, created by unknown magic principles, has already overlooked the entire British wizarding world. At the top of the Palace of Truth is the dazzling blue magic ball. Like an eye in the sky, Dumbledore has discovered that throughout the UK, any wizard with a certain level of strength can look up into the sky and see the existence of this eye. In the office, Professor McGonagall and several other heads of Hogwarts branches gathered here. However, no one spoke at this moment. After a long while, Dumbledore finally asked slightly tiredly, "So, how many wizards at Hogwarts have signed up for Roman's courses now?" McGonagall and the others looked at each other. Professor Flitwick, who spoke first, hesitated. "Ravenclaw, everyone signed up." Dumbledore looked at Snape, who also nodded with a gloomy expression. "All Slytherins have also signed up. I am adjusting the course times for different grades during this time. Of course, there is no need to ask about Gryffindor and Hufflepuff later." Naturally, everyone participated. You know, if anyone has shown the strongest resentment towards Roman, the Silver Demon King, before, there is no doubt that they are Gryffindor's Lion Cub and Hufflepuff's Badger Cub. As for Slytherin, those little snakes bear more of the fear of their parents' generation from Roman. Albus, the strength shown by Roman, as well as the courses he has taught, there are many things that will involve the level of black magic tomorrow. Do we really want to allow him to teach these things to young wizards? You know, black magic has a very serious impact on a wizard's mind. Dumbledore shook his head. Why didn't he know the problem? However, the current situation has long been beyond his control. The British wizards have long been unable to control this, especially the Ministry of Magic and the Hogwarts School Board. After hearing about Roman, those wizards even used his own kind of terrible black magic to teach others. There was no consideration at all about the little wizard. The fear of Roman's strength has caused them to completely lose their previous judgment. Among the people Dumbledore knows, Barty Crouch, the director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement of the Ministry of Magic, who is most opposed to the spread of black magic, has publicly stated before that he will lead the entire Ministry of Magic's arrest to participate in this rare study. A selfless man who would not hesitate to give the other party a cruel trial even if his son Barty Crouch Jr. joined the Death Eaters. Now, because of Roman's fear, he chose to personally lead the actioners under his command and learn from him. What a huge irony. A month ago today, every one of the Arres in the Ministry of Magic executed Roman. However, in a few days, they will come here on their own initiative and even bow to Roman, the great professor. Suffocation was the prevailing atmosphere in Dumbledore's office today. However, unlike the concerns of the higher-ups at Hogwarts, all the young wizards at Hogwarts were so excited that they had completely forgotten the so-called legend of the Silver Devil. When they were young, the powerful strength shown by Roman, as well as the Palace of Truth that rose from the ground and still stands perfectly on the edge of the Forbidden Forest, seduce the restless hearts of these little wizards every moment. In Transfiguration class, the absence of Professor McGonagall turned today's Transfiguration class into a basic self-study of spell memory. In the classroom at this moment, the little wizards had no intention of studying at all. One by one, they were lying by the window, excitedly talking about the Silver Devil course in 3 days. I've heard that powerful wizards can cast some common spells without a wand, but I swear, my parents never said that someone could conjure such a terrible palace without using a wand. Don't be silly, Weasley, you don't understand the horror of the Silver Lord at all. It's not a matter of using a wand or not. I'm sure that even Professor Dumbledore. It's also impossible to do this without using a wand. That's right. This is probably a common problem of the Weasley family. They have never used advanced wands, and they really think that advanced wands can create a palace casually. Ronald was once again speechless by Draco and several people around him. He blushed and hid away, but still looked unconvinced. Next to Draco, Pansy Parkinson, with short black hair, looked out the window at the magnificent building that looked like a palace where gods lived in legend. Especially that bright eye of truth directly revived the little girl's heart. The other party couldn't help but think of those teachings of his mother. If I please Professor Roman, will the other party teach me to become such a powerful witch? Such fantasies are not uncommon in the current classroom. Among them, as a young wizard who first saw Roman's strength and had contact with him, Hermione was definitely the only one in the entire classroom who could still sit in her seat and study. But the book she is reading at the moment has nothing to do with the Transfiguration class. All of them were books recommended to her by Roman. 3 days, for Roman, who was studying the potion with peace of mind and didn't take the lectures seriously at all, it was a blink of an eye. However, for those British wizards who are looking forward to learning something real from the Silver Lord Roman and making themselves stronger, these 3 days are definitely the longest 3 days for them. In the restaurant of Hogwarts on this day, the little wizards who used to miss the breakfast time because of sleeping late all got up early one by one. In the buzzing restaurant, almost everyone was discussing the upcoming Silver Demon King class. Hey Hermione, the Silver Demon King didn't prepare any teaching materials at all, and he didn't ask us to prepare anything at all. What you are reading now will not be of any help at all. For a person like Ronald who doesn't like studying, there is no doubt that seeing Hermione, a top student, flipping through books while eating makes him scratch his head the most. However, Roman has already quietly changed his mind. Hermione, who only wanted to become a legendary witch, had no intention of talking to her at all. In this regard, as someone who had been with Ronald for a long time, Harry was also very unfortunate to be left out by Hermione. There is no longer the inseparability in the original plot. After the meal, the little wizards soon came to the magnificent and mysterious Palace of Truth. Father, as soon as Draco came here, he was pleasantly surprised to find that one of the members of the school board, his father Lucius, was also there. Just as he was about to step forward and say something, he was warned by a stern look from the other party and stood still. Then I was surprised to find that not only my father, but also the parents of my 2 attendants, as well as some familiar uncles and aunts from pure-blood wizard families, even some old men whom I have never seen before, are gathered here. Lucius stepped over and looked at his excited son, but he immediately looked at the clothes on the other person's body. The clothes are very clean, which is due to Draco's good living habits. However, when Lucius noticed the leather shoes on the other person's feet, his face instantly darkened. Damn it, Draco, you have completely forgotten everything I taught you. If I hadn't come today, I'm afraid I would have received a letter from Hogwarts right away, saying that you tossed in the Scottish cannibal pile. Draco's expression changed. Just as he was about to explain something, Lucius knelt down and polished his son's shoes himself in front of everyone. Goyle, damn it, wipe the oil stains off your face. You are just looking for death. Pansy, come here and let me smell your scent. Yes, you are very obedient. This perfume is just right. Seeing these little Slytherin wizards being treated by their own adults in front of everyone, they began to sort out their images on the spot. Their nervous looks attracted a group of little wizards around them. Teacher, I don't know why. Among them, people like Harry Potter who have no parents are the most embarrassed and confused. Harry Potter, if you don't want to be thrown out of the window like garbage in the middle of class, you'd better tidy up your clothes now. Please pay attention to you. Your collar, your legendary reputation, is not a good thing in front of the master of this palace. The gloomy voice and the almost iconic cadence made Harry Potter tense up instantly. Snape, the potions teacher who made him feel the most fearful and intimidated, the other party's targeting in class has always made him feel very confused and hurt. However, what Harry Potter never thought of was, seeing that he hadn't moved for a long time, the cold old bat Snape in front of him suddenly reached out his hand for an unprecedented time, and gently straightened his zigzag collar. When he noticed the damage on his glasses, he even took out his wand. Restored like new, feeling the suddenly comfortable vision in front of him, Harry Potter was about to say something. 5.6 There was a sudden sound, but it was an important task to keep the scene busy, and they all paused. Follow me. Snape's icy voice came again, and Harry Potter hurried to follow. But the next moment, he couldn't help but be attracted by the palace gate opened in front of him. The exquisite carvings of devils and angels, one on the left and one on the right, are presented in front of everyone as the gate slowly opens. A sense of silent majesty made everyone's actions involuntarily solemn. There was no staff to receive them, but a fireflower-like spot of light suddenly appeared in the air, entering from the gate of the palace, and going in one direction. Everyone was taken aback for a moment, and then hurriedly followed. A team of nearly 10,000 people, walking shoulder to shoulder into the Palace of Truth. Soon, he followed the guidance and came to a huge hall that was brightly arranged like an opera house. Arthur, the space-folding spell here makes me feel a little different. It seems to have gone beyond the scope of this spell. After finding a seat and just sitting down, Mrs. Weasley's attention was instantly attracted by the exquisite layout here. Everything here is not comparable to the Baro in my own home. The white gold lights, the tables that seem to be plated with gold, and the red carpets made of unknown materials, even filled the air with some kind of medicinal fragrance that was refreshing. Arthur Weasley couldn't care about his wife's problems at all at this moment. His eyes kept observing the surroundings. Nearly tens of thousands of wizards gathered here, and the ring-shaped stepped lecture hall allowed them to have an unaffected vision. Mary? All my colleagues from the Ministry of Magic are here. No, no. Arthur's eyes widened. Damn it, today's Ministry of Magic, shouldn't it be a general strike? Chapter 56 Professor Snape, maybe I should help you make Harry Potter's eyes into a pendant. Please order first. There are too many people here today. This point was discovered by the Arthur Weasley family, and there are naturally many people like them. Even Fudge, the Minister of Magic, frowned instantly after seeing this scene. What's going on? I obviously arranged someone to be on duty. My God, it's obvious that the entire Ministry of Magic is here. Amidst the soft reproach, the secretary also became uneasy. He kept bowing and apologizing. Professor Dumbledore, nothing will happen, right? Now everyone's attention is on the Silver Lord. Dumbledore, who was sitting next to him, did not speak. However, there was a hint of uneasiness in his expression. Fortunately, he thought that he had already had such things taken out from Gringotts. Dumbledore also relaxed a little. Mr. Minister, everyone is here. Today, all wizards with a certain level of strength in the entire British wizarding world have arrived. We just need to let the Eras return to their respective posts as soon as possible after this is over. Fudge nodded and said nothing more. However, at this moment, he was in a place he didn't know. A place in the corner of the scene. Professor Quirrell is hiding here with a very low presence, hardly attracting anyone's attention. Master, Gringotts, I saw the people of Gringotts. I heard that the Silver Demon King did not return their Norwegian spiny bag. The current Gringotts is probably, Quirrell said quietly, and Voldemort, who was hiding in his body, was equally excited to discover this at this moment. Just when he was wondering if he should let Quirrell get out of here now and go to Gringotts to steal the Philosopher's Stone he needed. Boom sound. It was as if a gust of wind suddenly burst open the door on one side of the hall. Roman was wearing a 4-star potion master's cloak, like a lion patrolling his territory. Suddenly broke in. The familiar look on his face when he was stared at, as if the other party's signature haughty expression when he was studying at Hogwarts, made all the Slytherins present feel their hearts tighten. Walking to the podium, Roman looked around. Suddenly, in the direction he looked in, all the wizards stood up nervously from their seats, bowing to him one by one to show respect. Or they took off their hats obediently, and bowed to salute one after another. The gentleman's etiquette has reached the extreme. Just like the nobles of Europe in the last century, one by one managed their expressions and demeanor to the extreme. It was as if a month ago, at Hogwarts, the people waving their wands at Roman in the gladiatorial arena, chanting curses crazily, and clamoring to kill him, had absolutely nothing to do with them at the scene now. Why does this way of appearing always make me feel extremely familiar? Ronald, who was sitting next to Hermione, murmured quietly. Hermione, on the other hand, was already sitting upright, looking at Roman on the stage seriously. At such a young age, the obsession in her eyes had become quite intense. No one paid any attention to Ronald, who couldn't help but pout, and then looked in Harry's direction. Poor Harry. What serious illness did Snape suffer from today? Could it be that he was destined by someone? At this moment, it was not far from their side, close to Slytherin's position. Harry was like a quail, sitting shivering in his seat, looking nervous, like a criminal suspect at a court trial, with his chest raised and his head raised. On his left was the headmaster of Slytherin, Snape Severus. On the other side of him, Draco was staring at him strangely with a strange look. Does it make you feel uncomfortable sitting in our Slytherin area? Looking at your sitting posture, I don't know how many ants are biting your butt. Harry didn't know how to answer. Fortunately, as soon as Draco finished speaking, a hand from behind hit him hard on the head. Draco, shut your mouth, take out your paper and pen, and you have to write down every word that Professor Roman said next, and don't waste such expensive opportunities and time in life on stupid on Potter. Harry Potter, he always felt that Draco's father, Lucius, had a deeper meaning in his mockery of him. Fortunately, at this time, Roman, who was standing on the podium, finally spoke slowly under the expectant eyes of everyone. A lot of familiar faces, some are getting older, and some are getting older, but the only thing that remains the same is your unchanging strength. 13 years, when I see you again everyone. Do you know what else you would have let me see, except for your eyes that want to tear me into pieces? The scene was completely silent. Draco has already rustled and quickly used the magic quill to record. That serious look attracted a satisfied nod from Lucius in the seat behind him. At least on this point, regardless of whether his son understands the profound knowledge of spells that Roman will introduce next, this attitude will definitely not let the face-loving Roman make things difficult for him. On the stage, Roman's face slowly showed a strong look of contempt. Books, piles of dusty piles, wrapped in layers of cobwebs, full of rotten smell, and almost repeated to make people crazy. Rotten books. You all seem to be soaked in that strange-smelling patina. Lucius took a deep breath. This damn sense of familiarity surged into his mind again. This extreme contempt, as if they were all a pile of useless garbage, was forcefully rolled back from his memory once again. It's just that they and the entire Slytherin students were unconvinced more than 10 years ago. Then, they were lying on the ground, their eyes were occupied by Roman's shiny leather shoes, and they heard these words. Now, they're already available here. This change in posture made them not only not feel a trace of humiliation from Roman's disdainful abuse, but even at this moment, there was a kind of morbid satisfaction. Jason Vincent, who was sitting next to Lucius, even leaned back with a relaxed expression. Unlike Slytherin, who was ravaged by Roman in Hogwarts and was almost numb, the other colleges in Hogwarts, especially the Wizards of Ravenclaw who have a belief in knowledge. But he frowned. What does this mean? Roman said this. Is he mocking the great crystallization of wisdom? Professor Flitwick was puzzled, and the unhappiness flashed between his brows was seen by the surrounding Ravenclaw students. However, no one dared to interrupt Roman at this time. Magic is free, and it is an art that cannot be restrained. Even if you use them to fight the bloodiest battle, what exists between the surge of magic power and the chanting of spells must be art. Unprecedented words, from Roman's mouth. However, how many years have passed since the creation of the 3 unforgivable curses? Those of you who were present could be scared to pee on the spot when you heard the name of the Dark Lord. But what did the Dark Lord do? Do they have any magical inventions worthy of recognition? Is there any powerful exclusive black magic in Grindelwald? Or did Tom Riddle create a dark magic powerful enough to destroy the entire wizarding world? At the scene, on the side of Slytherin who was originally relatively calm, the complexions of Lucius and the others changed instantly, and the bodies that had just relaxed suddenly tensed up. Roman was able to say that person's name in public, with an almost undisguised contemptuous tone. Moreover, not only the second-generation Dark Lord Voldemort, but even the first-generation Dark Lord Grindelwald has become what he calls a clown-like character. Dumbledore's hand under the table clenched angrily. As a good friend of Grindelwald, it would be false for Dumbledore not to be angry at this moment. Even if Dumbledore is well-mannered, when someone points his nose and says that his friend is a deceitful piece of trash. And Professor Quirrell, who was hiding in the corner at the moment, was so frightened that he shrank into a ball nervously. Within him, Voldemort was silent. This kind of silence represented the anger that wished to crush Roman on a stage to death with his own hands. However, just when the little wizards were puzzled, they asked the adults around them in a low voice, who are Tom Riddle and Grindelwald? In the British wizarding world, Dumbledore and Voldemort wanted to kill Roman on the spot. When a series of names came out of Roman's mouth, Enzo Avada, inventor of Avada Kedavra, the invincible Andros, the god-invoking guardian created, made the Masters and the Dementors change the roles of hunter and prey. The ancient Greek black wizard Hyper, the creator of black magic, is a great existence. I really want to ask, among the wizards of Slytherin, how many people know his name? He's the world's first Parseltongue, not the Salazar Slytherin you're talking about. Why are these powerful wizards who invented truly terrifying spells forgotten by you? And each of you can only rely on the talent given by the so-called Merlin to master these black magics, but you can make you all look like you have met Satan. There was silence. Roman scoffed again. For hundreds of years, the weapons of the Muggle world have changed from swords, guns and spears to today's strong ships and cannons. Even the Muzz you despise the most can already fly in the sky, and our great wizard Mister, where are they? They will still get old, sick and die. They still need to wave their wands when they're fighting. Even the Dark Lord who frightened you out of your wits can only be like a stutterer, chanting the killing curse that existed hundreds of years ago. Avada gnawed a big melon. Roman pursed his mouth, and stretched out a hand in a comical way, with a pinky finger up, as if holding a magic wand in his hand. He was releasing Avada Kedavra, and in an instant, many black wizards on the scene broke their defenses one after another. Looking at the aggrieved and ashamed faces of everyone present, the corners of Roman's mouth curled up slightly. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly seemed to see something. Eyes twinkling. The next moment, the whole person didn't see any movement, and turned into a cloud of black smoke and disappeared in an instant. What a pair of enchanting eyes, this dark green, like the light of the death curse that killed his mother. Professor Snape, maybe you don't know, I am also very good at alchemy. Why don't you let me help you make Harry Potter's eyes into a pair of pendants? The sudden sound rang in his ears, which instantly made Snape's hair stand on end. It also startled the Malfoy family sitting nearby. Wow! Jason and others who had been bullied by Roman. The Slytherin wizards all immediately sat upright. On his forehead, a large amount of sweat began to seep and slide down. However, Roman was not even interested in talking to them. He stared at Snape in front of him with a playful expression, his pupils shrinking violently. Under the horrified gaze of the other party, a hand gently placed on the side of Harry Potter's eyebrows. On the 2 fingers, jet black magic power fluctuated, instantly making everyone around them breathe tight. It can be seen that as the legendary potion master in the British wizarding world and the dean of Slytherin, our Professor Snape has no interest in what I have to say. On the contrary, the eyes seem to be more attractive. Snape looked at the evil smile on Roman's face, and his expression suddenly changed. No, my eyes. Looking at the shrinking dark green pupils in Roman's hand, and the horrified Harry Potter crying loudly on the side, The entire scene was instantly in an uproar. "Professor Roman, what on earth did you do?" "You." Beside Dumbledore, Fudge stood up with a changed expression and was about to say something, but he saw Roman's hand in midair, squeezing the opponent gently. The next moment, the latter was shocked to find that he could not open his mouth. Dumbledore's 650 or so expressions on the side changed, and he hurriedly cast a spell to relieve the other party's embarrassment. However, he was shocked to find that the released spell, Curse Stop, unexpectedly, no effect at all. At this moment, Roman ignored Harry Potter, who was screaming in panic. He put one hand on Snape's shoulder and held 10 pairs of glasses in his hand, which seemed to be staring at Snape heavily. Black-green eyeballs. How helpless, Lily. Oh yes, Lily Potter must have been very helpless back then, right? Poor Potions Master. For more than 10 years, his body has decayed and disappeared. What our Professor Snape studies every day is still the old and toothless Felixer. He. Why not try to resurrect her? Why not study the magic spell, restore her body, go to the god of death, and take back her soul? Why, Snape? His whole body was trembling as he looked at the pair of Harry Potter's eyeballs in Roman's hand. Amidst the harsh taunts from the other party, Snape couldn't help but recall the events of that year. Tragedy in Godric's Vale. Lily must have been desperate when facing Voldemort at that time, right? Looking at the frightened Snape, Roman curled his lips in disdain. The hand holding the eyeball slapped Harry Potter's eyebrows aside, and the eyes that had disappeared the next moment returned to Harry Potter's face again. Looking at Harry Potter, Roman, who was looking at him in shock, the corner of his mouth once again curved into an evil arc. More than 10 years ago, when I developed this technique, dark magic and body segmentation surgery, and used it on James Potter for the first time, the other party also had the same expression. After seeing that nothing happened here, Dumbledore and the others couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Professor McGonagall simply sat down in her seat. At that moment, she was so frightened that she even took out her wand, thinking that Roman was going to go crazy here and start killing people. Something like that. There was cold sweat on everyone's forehead. But Roman glanced at Draco Malfoy, who was also frightened, but still controlled the magic quill beside him, recording what he said, and raised his eyebrows slightly. He glanced at Lucius behind him with a deep look, who was smiling apologetically. He snorted softly, and his figure instantly turned into black mist and returned to the podium again. "In my course, I can teach you how to play with death. I can teach you how to cause pain. I can also tell you the path to becoming a supreme wizard, and make the so-called white wizard bow his head to you. But if someone does anything in my course that makes me uncomfortable..." Roman seemed to be possessed by Snape in class. His voice was cadenced, and his eyes were slowly looking at Snape, who was still in shock. "Professor Snape, I don't mind demonstrating in front of everyone how to resurrect a person who has been dead for more than 10 years. Of course. She may be naked, playing with the dead, coercing the living, and humiliating those who are weaker than him. Chapter 57 Subverts the Understanding of Potions and Cures of Avada's Kedavra. Please subscribe. Roman's warning, based on his understanding of Roman. Maybe he is really joking now. But if Snape really took this sentence as a joke, then one day he might really see that Lily Potter, whom he had been dreaming about, could not forget him even though he had lost her for more than 10 years. Naked, in an almost humiliating way, was resurrected and presented in front of the entire British wizarding world. He swallowed nervously. "Although I don't want that kind of thing to happen anyway." However, looking at Roman's serious eyes at this moment, the voice of resurrecting the beloved, like the temptation of the devil, finally began to echo in Snape's heart at this moment. Roman snorted softly. "Okay, since our Potions Master, Professor Snape, happens to be here today, let's finalize the content of our course today." Seeing Snape's ugly expression, the corners of Roman's mouth curled up slightly. Death has always been the end of everything. Of course, romantics like to call death the beginning to deceive themselves and others. Roman paused slightly. But in the end, no matter how romantic a person is, they will accept the fact that death is the end as time goes by. After all, although the existence of ghosts can be regarded as a kind of continuation, there is no doubt that they lose more than they gain. Roman said, stretching out a hand and waving gently in the void. The next moment, there was a surge of dark energy on the originally empty podium. Instantly, neat rows of bottles and cans appeared. Through some of the translucent jars, everyone can see that there are a variety of excellent potions that have been preserved inside, but some of the potions are stored in the same way as they usually are in the wizarding world. Completely different. In addition to these, in front of everyone's sight, there were a large number of equipment on the podium that looked like they came from a mole hospital. Roman casually took off the American 4-star Potion Master's cloak and threw it into the void. Looking at these curious British wizards, there was a smile on the corner of the mouth. Maybe people have the desire to share. For Roman, a few new magic potions are nothing at all. As the Silver Demon King who deserves death in people's mouth, Roman also has such low-level tastes. "Today is my first class. In this case, I think it is very necessary to give you a gift." As he said that, a small test tube-like medicine bottle filled with blue liquid suddenly appeared in Roman's hand. Seeing the magic potion taken out by Roman, everyone was shocked at first, and then sat up straight. Even Professor McGonagall, who was originally dissatisfied with Roman's behavior just now, couldn't help but adjust his reading glasses, his eyes full of curiosity. This potion is a gadget, just my second-year work at Hogwarts. Second grade work? Everyone was stunned, and then some people's faces suddenly became less interested. However, at this moment, people in Slytherin College became nervous. Draco, write it down quickly. You must write down every word Roman says next. On the side, Jason Vincent also slapped his son Crabbe on the head. Damn it, where are your paper and pen? I sent you to Hogwarts, and you didn't even bring a pen and paper to class? Pansy Parkinson looked at Crabbe and the others who had received a lesson, just as a gloating smile appeared on his lips. The next moment, his mother's stern voice came out in rare circumstances. Came from around me. Pansy, don't worry about the things you don't want to do and listen carefully. Oh my god, you will never imagine how outstanding Professor Roman was when he was in the second grade. Looking at his mother, Roman, staring at the podium with a look of obsession. Pansy couldn't help but look at her father, who was sitting not far away. Jealousy, hatred, disgust, and nothing. This is the expression on his father's face at this moment. Amidst the rustling sounds, some wizards who saw Slytherin's reaction also followed suit. On the podium, just when everyone was expecting Roman to introduce the potion in his hand, Roman's gaze suddenly and again looked in Snape's direction full of jokes. Speaking of which, Professor Snape also talked about the formula of the potion in my hand in his first class a few days ago. Snape and everyone were stunned, and Harry Potter, who was huddled together in fear and had no intention of recording anything in class, couldn't help but look at Snape at the side. I definitely still remember the other party's first class. On the podium, Roman coughed slightly. Then he imitated Snape's melodious tone and spoke slowly. Professor Snape, tell me, what will happen if Narcissus root powder is added to mugwort liquid? A very simple question, and it was indeed the content of my class a few days ago. Although he didn't know where Roman got the information, Snape spoke immediately. Narcissus root mixed with mugwort makes a powerful hypnotic. Roman smiled and nodded, as if he had expected the other party to answer this way. The smile on his face was full of sarcasm, so that the wizards at the scene couldn't help but start whispering. Narcissus root and mugwort are indeed a hypnotic formula, right? Yes, we already learned this when we were in first grade. This is the most basic common sense issue that all little wizards must learn. But why does the Silver Demon King smile so proudly? Roman looked at the reactions of everyone present mockingly. Yes, a perfect answer. Even if Professor Snape were to write the answer with a pen, I think every punctuation mark on it would be exactly the same as the content of the Water of Life and Death on page 17 of Standard Potions. Roman paused, looked around, and then fixed his gaze on Snape again. Let me ask you again, if you want to find bezoars, where should you start? Snape frowned. A bezoar is a stone in the stomach of a ram. Roman nodded, his sarcastic smile growing stronger. The standard answer is indeed the legendary master of potions, Professor Snape. Then, you don't need to answer the last question. According to your teaching content, the boat-shaped aconite and the wolfspan aconita must be the same plant, but they are just different names extended from different regions of the wizarding world. Seeing that Snape didn't speak, Roman sneered and shook his head slowly. Poor Snape, fame and luck ... You are really like a pig pursuing pig food. You are stupidly working hard for these things. The brain in your body does not give you any other function besides memorizing words and punctuation marks written by others in books. Shh. Besides Snape, the magic quill in Draco's hand was frantically shaking, and before he knew it, there was already a thick stack of papers on the side, densely packed with Roman's words. Despite the overwhelming majority, there is nothing of real value. However, before he knew it, Draco couldn't help yearning for Roman Kulski, the Silver Demon Lord, who was on the podium and looked down on the entire British wizarding world. Just when everyone looked at each other suspiciously, wondering what Roman was going to say, Roman no longer had the intention to continue talking nonsense. The figure flashed and appeared in front of Snape again. The sudden movement frightened Harry Potter's body and shivered again, and Snape immediately protected Lily Potter's son behind him. However, this time, Roman had no interest in taking a look at the little doll that Dumbledore touted as his savior. For the sake of our longtime classmate, Snape Severus, today's class content will officially begin with you. The mixture of Narcissus root and mugwort can indeed make life and death water, but all this requires prerequisites. Under a certain temperature and time, there is no problem with this formula. But if you can keep it constant and let the Narcissus root and mugwort be mixed and cooked at 75.9 degrees Celsius for more than 30 minutes, the filtered potion will not only have no hypnotic effect at all, but it will also explode and stimulate the wizard's body. The magic power fell into a violent state. The bezoar is indeed a kind of stone in the stomach of a ram, but this has a very important premise. The rams here are not all rams. For example, 17 years ago, the British wizarding community suffered from the spirit-leaving syndrome. The number of wizards has nearly tripled. Street Mungo's Hospital of Magic believes that it was caused by the use of substandard potions, and their speculation here is indeed correct. but it is a pity. Bar. Roman paused and slowly looked at the director of Street Mungo's Hospital for Magical Injuries and Injuries, who was sitting next to Dumbledore and Fudge, with a strange smile on his face. They did drink substandard potion, but this potion was Albert Flat Magic Potion, prepared by Street Mungo's Hospital of Magic, and one of the magic potions in this potion is bizarre. Instantly, the scene was in an uproar, and everyone looked at the director of the St. Doug Magic Hospital in horror, who originally had a smile on his face. Professor Roman, please pay attention to your words and deeds. You are slandering. After briefly glancing at the man who stood up angrily to question him, Roman looked at Snape, who looked shocked in front of him. Albert Flat Magic Potion can be used to calm restless magic. It is a very common and necessary low-level potion when performing magical treatment. It is simple to prepare and the materials are very common, but after some rams eat something called Godric cordyceps, there will be an imperceptible difference in the bizarre produced. The ingredient that originally calmed down the restlessness of magic power will change. There will indeed be no reaction at first, but after a month, this ingredient will completely explode. And the reason why those unlucky wizards suffer from soul-leaving syndrome is also here. Roman chuckled, as if pointing out something, stretched out a hand, and lightly patted Snape's shoulder in front of him. Godric cordyceps, the name Professor Snape should be very familiar, right? When I was in 2nd grade, I went there personally just to explore this issue. I have to say that stupid James Potter is indeed very talented at choosing a cemetery. Godric cordyceps, the director of Street Mungo's Hospital for Magical Injuries and Injuries, who originally had an angry look on his face, as if he was going to have a wizard duel with Roman, suddenly thought of something, and his face suddenly turned pale. If he remembered correctly, the supplier of the bizarre potion to their hospital was near Derrick Valley. They were still a little hesitant at first. They didn't know that what Roman said was simply subverting the content of the book. Is it true or false? When they saw the doctor who suddenly fell down in his seat, after the director of the hospital, they all took a breath of cold air. Rita Skeeter, who was sitting near the corner of the scene, felt as if she had discovered some huge treasure. Instantly excited. The magic quill in his hand was even crazier than the one in Draco's hand. Almost in the blink of an eye, an eye-catching title was written on the paper in front of me. A major mistake that took 17 years to be discovered, and was given a gift by Street Mungo's Hospital for Magical Injuries and Injuries, Soul-Leaving Syndrome. Ignoring Rita Skeeter's excitement for the time being, Roman finally snorted. Once again, the magical medicine aconite broke everyone's perception. The names wolfspan aconitum and boat-shaped aconitum originate from different places, and the origin of the different names is also because they were originally used to configure two kinds of important materials for potions with different medicinal properties. Of course, this kind of medicine is not commonly used, and many people don't even know about these things. But, Professor Snape, if I remember correctly, you were obviously very serious in the class of our History of Magic Professor, Cuthbert Binns, but why didn't you know anything about it? What about this? Snape's heart twitched again. History of Magic? Everyone thought that Roman might have found this subversive clue from the restricted books section of Hogwarts, or from an unknown corner of the library. But when they heard with their own ears that Roman actually knew this from Cuthbert Binns, whose lectures seemed to have a hypnotic spell, they couldn't help but be stunned. However, the surprise Roman gave everyone was obviously more than that. Looking at the stunned Snape, Roman chuckled. Professor Snape, I'm afraid you don't know that I have a magic potion. A magic potion that can emergency cure lives of people hit by the death curse. One of the raw materials. Water. Now, even Dumbledore was no longer calm. Why is Avada Kedavra called the unforgivable curse? Isn't it because, good Zhao, it has the effect that the opponent who hits it will die? That kind of curse that directly kills the soul. Now Roman actually said that he actually has an emergency treatment method. Professor Roman, do you really have a cure for Avada Kedavra? Roman looked at Dumbledore, who had a dull look on his face, and smiled slightly. But he didn't mean to explain. However, it was precisely this attitude that instantly made people who knew Roman confirm this matter, especially at this moment. Snape's eyes were red instantly. When the Godric Valley incident occurred, Roman had already been imprisoned in Azkaban because of himself. If the other party was present at the time, perhaps. At this moment, Roman did not use any magic spells on Snape. However, this heartbreaking pain made Snape unable to breathe. Poor classmate Lily. Snape, 1 hour. As long as I was outside at that time, I had 1 hour of treatment time to save our classmate Lily. Instead of letting her gradually turn into a cold corpse. Snape, with a plop, Snape sat down weakly on the chair and turned to look at Harry Potter's eyes that looked exactly like her mother's. Lily ... scared. Seeing Snape sinking into endless regret and pain, a flash of schadenfreude flashed in Roman's eyes. Although he did not receive any Dementor's kiss in Azkaban, he did endure 13 years of imprisonment. Snape is responsible for all of this. Looking at the dull eyes round him looking at him, the smile on Roman's face slowly disappeared. So ... I have said so much, why haven't you written it down yet? Chapter 58 Hogwarts House Cup. Devil Cup. Please subscribe. The sound of rustling the tip of the pen sounded in the splendid lecture hall. Among them, even Dumbledore and Professor Quirrell, who was possessed by Voldemort, were acting like little wizards at this moment, carefully recording what Roman told them. Of course, they were not interested in Roman's gossip about Snape's personal grudges. However, just because they are not interested does not mean that others are not interested. Did you all hear that? Professor Snape seems to have some kind of relationship with Harry's mother. Oh my god, no wonder he was so targeted at Harry during potions class. Ronald, who had a big mouth, was pretending to record something in his hand while speaking quietly and excitedly to Hermione beside him. Although Hermione had no interest in talking to him at the moment, Ronald didn't mind at all, seeing that the other party was still talking endlessly about his speculations about the gossip back then. Even in the end, he lowered his voice and said the ridiculous statement Snape killed Harry's mother because of love and hatred. This kind of words immediately made Hermione angry on the spot. Shut up. If you are very curious about other people's sad things, and you know that this thing can make you feel unprecedented pleasure, why don't you just ask Harry? Haven't you always claimed to be his best friend? I think your good friend Harry wouldn't mind showing you his bloody scars, right? Hermione's voice was not quiet, and everyone around her was recording things seriously. As soon as he opened his mouth, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. Ronald's face turned red instantly, and even the expressions of the Weasleys beside him were filled with embarrassment. Roman was also preparing something with his head down. The idea suddenly occurred to him just now. However, while he was still thinking about how to deal with it, Miss Hermione's voice came into his ears. Looking up at the Weasley family who were blushing with embarrassment, and Miss Hermione who was looking angry at the side, Roman immediately knew what had just happened. Ha ha, Weasley. That family was called a shameful family of pure-blood wizards. To be honest, when he first joined Hogwarts, Roman also didn't understand the paranoid ideas of the pure-blood wizard family. Arthur Weasley just lives a cowardly life and likes to communicate with moles. This should be nothing. But as the contact lasted for a long time, Roman had to admit that sometimes Lucius and his gang really needed to be dealt with. But when it came to the issue of the Weasley family, Roman unexpectedly reached some kind of recognition with them. This family is indeed a disgrace to pure-blood wizards. No, even Roman believes that they are not worthy of being regarded as wizards at all. It is not an exaggeration to say that they are a shame to the wizarding world. Whether it is Arthur Weasley or Molly Weasley, they can be said to be the top wizards in the wizarding world in terms of strength. Otherwise, Dumbledore would not be interested in joining the Order of the Phoenix. However, this character that Dumbledore admired was also the one that Roman despised the most. He clearly has good strength and talent. When Arthur Weasley was still in the 5th and 6th grade of Gryffindor, Roman, who had just entered school, had already heard from him the idea of transforming Malcars into magical props. Roman even kindly gave the other party suggestions at the beginning. Establish an organization similar to the Flywheel Company in the wizarding world, specializing in selling such magically modified cars. But maybe the mud just can't hold up the wall. Or maybe Arthur Weasley is just a prodigal who only has good alchemy talent but doesn't like fame and fortune. The Weasley family obviously has considerable strength and capital, but until now, they have to worry about 1 or 2 galleons every month. Sorry, Professor Roman, we go out. Molly Weasley smiled stiffly and wanted to explain something. However, the next moment, Roman's cold voice shocked everyone at the scene. The Weasley family was also shocked on the spot. They did not expect that Roman's temper was so bad. Molly Weasley wanted to say something else, but at this time, Arthur Weasley had already seen the impatience in Roman's eyes. Although I am extremely curious about what Roman is going to talk about next. At this moment, for the safety of his family, he had to stand up obediently, pull his children and walk towards the outside of the Palace of Truth. Father, we still want to hear it. It's all stupid Ronald's fault. You always talk so much. Damn it. Aren't you Harry's friend? Are you really so interested in other people's sad things? The irrelevant people left, and a gentle smile appeared on Roman's face again. Professor McGonagall, who was sitting in the seat, saw this scene, although he felt that Roman's direct expulsion of the Weasley family was a bit violent. However, at this moment, he actually approached Dumbledore and spoke softly. Albus, I think I finally saw a glimpse of what Roman was like when he was in the 1st grade. Although his style is fierce and sometimes a bit extreme, I think he is still an upright person. Dumbledore said nothing. An honest person? Professor McGonagall usually puts most of his energy into Hogwarts. It is not an exaggeration to say that he has given more than himself, the principal. And precisely because of this, McGonagall didn't know much about Roman's views on the Weasley family. However, for Dumbledore, who secretly runs the Order of the Phoenix, Roman's behavior exactly illustrates the other party's strong supremacy of strength. He respects those who are talented and is willing to use their talents in pursuit of strength. You can even grant certain favors to those who are weaker than you, but are willing to pay the price and pursue strength crazily. However, there is only one thing. Dumbledore looked at Roman on the podium, his eyes twinkling. Roman really hates and despises those people who have great strength but don't have the slightest thought of rule that a strong man should have. As for why Dumbledore dared to be so sure, because he is the kind of person in Roman's eyes, the most obvious representative. Although Roman did not show it in front of outsiders, Dumbledore could clearly perceive the true feeling of being completely despised from a personality perspective when facing Roman. On the Slytherin side, When Lucius and the others saw the disgraced Weasley family being kicked out by Roman in such a shameful way, they couldn't help but have a flash of schadenfreude in their eyes. Seeing the Gryffindor-born wizards, they all murmured their dissatisfaction with Roman, and suddenly stood up under the surprised gaze of their own son Draco. Professor Roman did the right thing. To be honest, although we Slytherin wizards have always been hated by people from other houses, things like this, revealing the scars of wizards from the same house, are also very special in our opinion. Incredible. It's hard to believe that the entire Weasley family are all Gryffindor wizards who pride themselves on their integrity and bravery, and the parents of our classmate Harry Potter, Lily and James, are also Gryffindors. To be honest, I don't understand. Is Gryffindor's bravery originally used in this kind of place? Seeing Lucius spraying venom in the direction of Gryffindor while showing admiration and flattery to him from time to time, Roman, who was standing on the stage, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows in silence. Seeing the angry two parties about to start yelling at each other, Roman gently raised his hand. This small action made Professor McGonagall, who was even about to scold Lucius, choose to shut up. Lucius, it seems that you have regained your form when you were studying in Slytherin, which is really missed, Roman said with a half-smile, and Lucius's smile suddenly froze on his face. But Roman looked around and looked at the angry Gryffindor with a smile on his face. Lucius, you may be wrong about one thing. What I'm angry about is not Weasley's revelation of Harry Potter's scar. The strong bullies the weak, just like a lion preying on a wild deer. This is their right. What I'm angry about is that Weasley, who is already holding a sword in his hand and picking wounds on others, is pretending to be honest and showing off his integrity. Everyone was stunned for a while, but the smile on Roman's face was full of coldness. I stand here today and can generously impart my knowledge of magic spells and potions to you. This is not for the sake of the beauty of the wizarding world. My purpose is very clear. The Demon King course will only give birth to the Demon King. Facing the tense and horrified crowd, Roman sneered and revealed his crazy ideas. Regardless of Dumbledore's cold gaze, this world is already, a little boring. I need to find some fun for myself, so, Lucius Malfoy, as long as you follow me and study hard, I will look forward to it many years later. You can shout the death curse at me again. It's just that it needs to be more cruel, more powerful, and make the spell full of artistic beauty. On the podium, the terrifying magic power fluctuations emanating from Roman's body caused everyone in the audience to gasp in shock. However, what made them even more horrified was the words coming out of Roman's mouth. Today he taught the British wizarding community that these wizards who hated him to the core were actually trying to make them stronger and then kill him in the end. In the corner, Professor Quirrell's body swayed, and after a while, he slumped down in the chair helplessly. He murmured words like crazy, and inside his body, Voldemort was also unusually silent at this moment. At this moment, he suddenly felt that he, the second-generation Dark Lord, had the so-called idea of exposing the wizarding world and then becoming the ruling class of the world. In front of this guy Roman, there is simply a great vision to make the world a better place. He is the leader of the development of the world, and Roman is the real Dark Lord, a lunatic who created terrifying power, spread it, and then let the power of destruction explode completely. In order to gain supreme power for himself, he even made the weak wizarding world cruel and dangerous at all costs, trained a group of predators against himself, and spurred himself to become ignoring everyone present who was completely stunned. Roman suddenly smiled evilly and made a move. The next moment, a small black energy turbine suddenly appeared in front of him, and sheets of paper with printed words poured out of it. Then, as if it had wings, it flew to the table in front of all the wizards. Just now, I thought of well, it's an interesting game for now. Dumbledore picked up the paper on the table, and his pupils shrank suddenly after seeing the words on it. The Demon King's Cup. Most of you are wizards born in Hogwarts, or have Hogwarts wizards in your family, and you will know about the Hogwarts Academy Cup, so I don't think there is much need to explain this thing now. I will release course tasks during each class, and those who can complete them well will get Demon King points. Roman spoke slowly, but everyone couldn't listen to the content behind it. Everyone stared blankly at the list in their hands. Silver Devil's elemental magic. You can release and control the power of elements such as fire, thunder, water, and wind to build a special magic structure and form a powerful attack method, which can move mountains and seas to the greatest extent. Silver Demon Lord's Beast Pen Transformation Science. You can steal the abilities and contracts of magical creatures, and perform advanced transformations on your familiars. At the top level, you can potentially create magical beasts like the legendary gods. Silver Demon King's Rebellious Potion Science. The magic power increases permanently, the lifespan increases permanently, the appearance is eternal, and the power of transforming the wizard's bloodline creates the body of a true god. Silver Demon King's Rules Alchemy. Artifact forging, life creation, improving various magic props, and creating a glorious industry that can last for several generations. Gudong. The sound of swallowing saliva echoed in the lecture hall at this moment. The young wizards couldn't help but think of the magnificent palace they were in now, created by Roman with his bare hands and without a wand. using magical means that they could not imagine and understand a few days ago. He couldn't help but imagine that the godlike figure that day looked like himself. Draco's hands were trembling with excitement. However, his father, who was always calm and elegant when Roman was not present, seemed to be suffering from Parkinson's disease at this moment, even more violent than his trembling. Merlin is on top. No. Merlin is right in front of you. Silver, His Majesty the Silver Demon King. A stumbling sound came from a corner. Roman turned his head to look, eyes flickering slightly. But they saw Professor Quirrell, holding the table with one hand at this moment, letting his somewhat limp body stand up, raising one hand tremblingly, and shouted a title that Roman had not expected in a stuttering and somewhat deformed voice. His Majesty the Silver Demon King? The corner of Roman's mouth curled up slightly. This believer of the Dark Lord seemed to have some meaning. I just don't know if this is the other person's own behavior or the intention of Voldemort in his body. Are you really willing to teach us this stuff? Quirrell tremblingly raised a list in his hand and asked a question that no one could believe. Facing the scorching eyes, Roman smiled slightly. Why not? My future challengers. At this time, the entire scene was completely in an uproar. However, Roman's surprise was more than that. He raised his hand slightly and spoke again when the scene was silent. Like the devil from hell who spreads temptation in the world. In addition, I will hold wizard duel competitions between wizards from time to time. For the top 10 who participate and win, I will tailor an absolutely powerful spell for them based on their wizard abilities. Hiss. Seeing that the lecture hall that Roman was supposed to use to teach classes had turned into a place that looked like a temple for religious sermons, Dumbledore's eyes were filled with solemnity and sadness. Under his gaze, whether it was the former members of the Order of the Phoenix or the professors at Hogwarts, they are all like fanatics, waving the list in their hands and shouting crazily at Roman. The entanglement and collision of the two emotions of hatred and admiration, as well as the temptation to master the 10 items written on the list in his hand, is enough to become a great wizard like Dumbledore. These people have completely lost their minds. Among them, there are many people who hate and want to kill Roman, but this does not affect their praise and respect for Roman at this moment. After all, Roman also said that he was training gravediggers for himself. Dumbledore. Oh, Grindelwald, my old friend, what should I do now? Chapter 59, Silver Devil's Bounty Mission. Hogwarts became my wizard barracks. Please subscribe. The rabbit's eyes are crystal clear and the harp is leisurely. Turn this clear water into fine wine. In the Hogwarts restaurant, the sound of chanting spells with obvious distressed emotions kept echoing. Harry Potter looked at Seamus Finnegan, who kept pouring a glass of water, waving his wand, and chanting some kind of spell. Confused, he glanced at Ronald who was sitting not far from him, and kept looking towards him even more vaguely, thinking of Ronald's schadenfreude remarks in the Silver Demon King's lecture hall 2 days ago. Harry Potter turned his attention to Hermione who was sitting in front of him. At this moment, the latter was holding a book of interpretation of 1000 basic potion raw materials and thinking hard. Hermione, what is Seamus doing? Boom. Before the question was asked, a huge explosion sounded in the next moment, which startled everyone. Ha ha ha, look at our future great Demon King Finnegan, who actually blew himself up into a black hedgehog. The whole restaurant burst into laughter instantly. Seamus Finnegan, who was being laughed at, had a face full of doubts and distress, flushed with a face full of black and grey. Even this low-level transformation spell couldn't be cast successfully. Just when everyone was busy here, suddenly there was a dense sound like clattering, like the sound of some kind of bird flapping its wings. And just when everyone looked up, a large black mass of bats suddenly poured into the restaurant's door and window, and the dense group of bats caused some young wizards to scream. Some people have also keenly noticed the things carried by these bats. The next moment, books with red and black covers precisely landed on the heads of everyone present. And at this time, the bats flying above the head suddenly gathered together and condensed into a ferocious demon head, from which bursts of strange and full of evil sounds came. The little wizards of Hogwarts, the key to the truth of magic, has arrived. May you be crowned legends. Wow! Looking at the bat group that turned into flying dust in the blink of an eye and dissipated in midair. All the young wizards who were still in shock lowered their heads and looked at the books in their hands. Harry Potter also got a book. Just as he opened the cover of the book in doubt, the next moment, ouch! The tingling pain on his finger immediately made him scream out, and at this moment, the book in his hand seemed to come to life in an instant. He started flipping by himself, and after going back and forth a few times, he finally settled on the first page. Hogwarts Gryffindor House, First Year, Harry Potter. Magic Level, F+, Master Magic, Transformation Spell LV1, Flying Spell IV1, Blood Ability, Parseltong. Current Demon King Points, 0 inches. Received the Silver Demon King Mission, none. Available Mission Permissions, EF. Walter, what is this? Hogwarts, Headmaster's Office. Looking at a red and black book with bronzing patterns in his hand, and the personal information about himself from the first page, Dumbledore raised his head and looked at Roman with a gentle smile on his face again. There was already a hint of horror in his eyes. How did you do it? Roman smiled slightly, his expression full of relaxation, as if what he did was really just eating and drinking. Shrugged. Professor Dumbledore, you know that my mother is a very capable telepathizer. I think I have inherited her talent in this regard, plus I borrowed the Hogwarts Book of Admission and some small alchemical methods. I call this thing, Wizard's Book. Of course, I think in the future more people may prefer to call it, the Book of the Demon King, or something like that. Roman said easily, looking at the collector's book of wizards in Dumbledore's hand that had been activated by the other party. The smile on his face became stronger and stronger. The specific manufacturing method of this thing is of course not as simple as he said, but things like magic and alchemy are all about one rule. It's not difficult for those who know how to do it, but it's difficult for those who don't know how to do it. As the creator of the Wizard's Book, Roman is naturally very clear about its own alchemical principles, and the result is that the production of this thing consumes almost all of Roman's money. It consumed a lot of magic power in his body. The consumption was so huge that he had always wanted to start rapid operations on the Silent Mage's Heart and original magic mark. He independently worked hard to restore and enhance the magic power in Roman's body. That's not what I want to ask, Roman Kulski. You know what I want to ask you. What exactly do you want to do? With only 2 people in the office, Dumbledore had no intention of playing casually with Roman. Looking at Dumbledore, who slowly stood up from his seat in front of him, feeling the terrifying aura emanating from the other party, Roman's eyes were always calm. Professor Dumbledore, can't you see? I'm helping the wizarding world advance rapidly the way it should. Dumbledore was furious. But do you know that if you do this, the entire wizarding world will bleed into the river of blood? He just glanced at it. In his Wizard's Book, Roman gave open mission content and rewards, which made him shudder instantly. Available mission authority, SF. S-level mission, the first generation Dark Lord. Capture and bring the first generation Dark Lord Grindelwald alive to the Palace of Truth and hand it over to the Silver Devil. Reward, S-level magic source potion, Tyrant's Dark Crown. S-level mission, Nick Mel. Capture and bring Alchemy Master Nick Mel alive to the Palace of Truth and hand it over to the Silver Devil. Reward, S-level magic potion, Death's Shadow Dead Spot. S-level mission, top magical creature specimens. Collect 5 top-level magical creatures rated in the Wizard's Book, and bring them intact to the Palace of Truth to the Silver Devil. Reward, choose any magical creature bloodline for wizard bloodline transformation. S-level mission. Roman, a bold guy, was so bold that he treated these legendary wizards as prey for bounties. Fortunately, his best friend, the first-generation Dark Lord, who was imprisoned in Nurmengard, the top wizard prison in Austria, was on this terrible list. Just looking at the reward content of Roman's so-called Silver Lord's bounty mission, Dumbledore felt an unprecedented chill. There is no doubt that the potion in the opponent's reward is terrifying. There will definitely be a large number of wizards who are willing to take risks. Looking at Dumbledore, who was staring at him as if he was seeing an evil ghost, Roman smiled and waved his hand. He opened his mouth to comfort the other person with a joking look on his face. Professor Dumbledore, don't be so nervous. All wizards' books have the alchemical confusion spells I set on them. No one else can see them except the person making the contract. Furthermore, only you, the greatest white wizard of this century, are qualified to see an S-level bounty mission like this. Dumbledore gritted his teeth, and the hand holding the Elder Wand only relaxed slightly. You're going to kill a lot of people. The world belongs to the strong. As for the weak, if they have neither the determination to become strong nor the capital to flatter and seek protection from the strong, death may not be a bad thing for them. Roman Kulski, are you crazy? Dumbledore was so angry that he cursed on the spot. He instantly raised the Elder Wand in his hand and pointed it directly at Roman in front of him. The dark green light bloomed and exuded the magical fluctuations of Roman's familiar death curse. Stop your harmful tricks immediately, otherwise, I can only say sorry to Newt and your parents. Dumbledore's eyes were filled with the killing intent needed to release the curse. The number of times this kind of expression has appeared on him, a white wizard, can only be counted on one's fingers. However, it has only been a few months since Roman was released from prison. Dumbledore didn't know how many times he had the idea of killing the other person. It's a pity that Roman now dares to do such an act that is almost provoking Dumbledore, and he also dares to find him with the Wizard's Book in a swagger. Naturally, he no longer regards the other party as a threat to himself. Smiling lightly, he took a step forward. The center of the brow rested on the tip of the opponent's Elder Wand. Do it. Dumbledore's face twitched, and the murderous intent in his eyes made him waver instantly after meeting Roman's cold, unyielding eyes. Feeling the power from the Elder Wand, Roman's head kept approaching him. A voice in his heart kept urging him, asking him to immediately use the greatest malice to burst out his most powerful death curse, before the entire wizarding world was turned upside down by this devil. And the opponent here early. However, with stronger reason, when he and Roman in front of him looked at each other, he easily suppressed this terrifying voice of temptation. You can't do anything. The current Silver Demon King has surpassed you in strength. Moreover, do you really think that the death curse can kill the other party? If it cannot be killed, then the other party's character will definitely take crazy revenge. Cool. The tip of the staff left the center of his eyebrows, and Roman's forward body staggered slightly. A chuckle came out of his mouth. Ha ha. Professor Dumbledore, you are afraid. What are you afraid of? Are you worried that if you can't kill me, I will release the mission of Mr. Grindelwald to all those who have the hand of the wizard? Dumbledore. There was a long silence, indicating that his concerns were answered by Roman. Roman gently adjusted the collar of his suit without any wrinkles. When he raised his head and stood upright again, he looked at Dumbledore with a look down at him that made him extremely uncomfortable. Please give me flowers. Like a noble, looking down at a knight trying to compete for privileges by waving the banner of justice. The first batch of wizard books will only be limited to Hogwarts for the time being. Looking at Dumbledore, who looked slightly relieved, as if he was sighing that everything was still under control, the corners of Roman's mouth slightly raised. If you think everything is fine, Professor Dumbledore, then I think it is necessary for me to remind you that our senior Tom Riddle does not seem to be dead. Now it is very likely that he is here in your Hogwarts. Looking at Dumbledore, whose expression instantly darkened, the smile on Roman's face showed no sign of restraint. You said, if the Eye of Truth assesses senior Tom Riddle's strength to be as S-level as yours, I wonder if he will set up those bounty tasks for me. Are you interested? Roman was laughing loudly. Not long after he left Dumbledore's office, Professor McGonagall hurried over. As soon as the latter walked into Dumbledore's office, he saw Dumbledore with a gloomy and terrifying face, as if he was possessed by a ghost. Albus, something happened. That night, all the professors at Hogwarts were called to the office by Dumbledore, and in each of their hands, Dumbledore saw a book with a slightly different style. There, Book of Wizards. Everyone, I think this wizard's book created by the Silver Devil still has big loopholes and flaws. Before I come up with a solution, I hope you can take this time to increase the academic work of the little wizards. Don't let them take the time to focus on the wizard's book. If possible put the wizard's book away. Dumbledore distressedly told him how to deal with it. However, the reality was that the next day, he was given a resounding slap in the face. In Professor Flitwick's Charms class, the hovering spell is one of the basic spells. It is simple to use, but very practical. The short Professor Flitwick stood on a specially raised podium. Even though I have personally taught wizards for countless generations, every time I face these young wizards, I still teach them this low-level magic spell. He still showed very good professional qualities. However, everything that happened today was because of what Roman, the Silver Demon King, had done, which made Professor Flitwick a little at a loss. Looking at these little wizards in front of them, they are either listless and waving their wands casually, or they have their heads lowered as if they are reading the books in front of them, but in fact they have no idea what they are thinking of writing. Wizard. Professor Flitwick also found it unprecedentedly difficult. Everyone, wave your wand with me and do this. Seeing everyone's slow reaction and obvious lack of intention, Flitwick suddenly thought of the reason and Professor Dumbledore's instructions. He also really wanted to get these little wizards to take their minds back. Even at the beginning of the class, he had already banned their wizard's book from appearing in his class. However, looking at these little wizards in front of him, Professor Flitwick, who was eager to let them devote themselves to learning, rolled his eyes. Suddenly he coughed slightly. In Silver Devil's Bounty Mission, there are many tasks that the little wizard can choose from. If you learn their levitation spell, you will get twice the result with half the effort. In the same time, within the time, get more devil points. As soon as these words came out, the little wizards who were still drowsy or in a daze suddenly opened their eyes wide. One by one they seemed to have come to their senses. Water? Professor Flitwick felt the familiar feeling of being surrounded by curious eyes return again, and helplessly said sorry to Dumbledore. In his heart, cleared his throat again. Of course this is true. Among the F-level bounty missions, in addition to the collection missions that require entering the Forbidden Forest, and some potion cultivation missions, the most suitable ones for young wizards to take on, there is no doubt that the basic part of Warcraft Fortress was built. Whether it is the transportation of huge special stones or the cleaning of some underground stones, it can be much more convenient. But this mission is the shortest among the F-level bounty missions and the one that earns the most Demon King points. There is no doubt that in the following teaching, Professor Lewy did not want to admit it, but the smoothness of the teaching completely exceeded his knowledge. In the past, some young wizards from pureblood wizard families would desert due to the early training of some families. However, the little wizards from Slytherin present now are more serious about studying than the other little wizards from the academy. In the afternoon, Professor McGonagall's transfiguration. Half the class has passed. Looking at these listless little wizards, I think of Professor Flitwick's class today. Professor McGonagall gritted his teeth, cleared his throat. Chapter 60 Proficiency Surges. I am the Silver Demon King, not a philanthropist. Please subscribe. Nurmengard. Dumbledore looked at the famous quote from his good friend on the stone tablet in front of him, and his eyes were in a daze for a while. For the greater good. Gellert, compared with that guy Silver Devil, these ideas you are pursuing at the moment are just like a declaration of world peace. Just as Dumbledore was mumbling to himself, there was a heavy creaking of the iron door, and the arrears of the International Confederation of Wizards who were responsible for guarding here slowly opened the door. Professor Dumbledore, according to the regulations, you only have 20 minutes. Dumbledore didn't say anything, and soon came to the top floor of Nurmengard under the leadership of a strictly patrolling jailer inside. As one of the top wizarding prisons well known in the wizarding world, although Nurmengard does not have the Dementors in Azkaban, which are always coveting the dark wizards imprisoned here, the cold environment here, and for the wizards, a cursed environment like hell. As a result, the people detained here are experiencing double oppression, both physical and spiritual, every moment. A few years later, when he saw his good friend again, looking at Grindelwald's skinny body, his breathing reminded Dumbledore of a blower fan. Dumbledore's hands clenched instantly. "Albus, you are not a regular visitor." The familiar voice, however, has become extremely hoarse at this moment. It is obvious that the Dark Lord Grindelwald is seriously ill at this moment. Dumbledore, who originally came here to ask his good friend how to deal with the unstable factor Roman, now saw himself being imprisoned in this wizard prison. A good friend who has become a human and a ghost. At this moment, my heart felt as if a knife was being twisted. Even facing Grindelwald's joyful expression when he saw his friend, he didn't know what to say at this moment. "It seems that you are in trouble. Is it the guy who claims to be Voldemort? I heard from the guards here." Grindelwald is indeed Dumbledore's good friend. Just from Dumbledore's look, he immediately thought of the other person's situation and stood up from the hard bed with some difficulty. He hunched over and walked to the door of the prison. Such a short distance, but in a ghostly place like Nurmengard, even the former Dark Lord, Grindelwald, has no ability to escape. "For the sake of you taking the initiative to come to me, Albus, tell me your trouble. Although I may not be able to help you at this moment, I can at least make you feel better." The greatest white wizard in the world can't not a good title to shoulder. Dumbledore, resisting the urge to cry, he took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. It was only then that Dumbledore finally slowly entered and exited the matters related to Roman Goldstein-Kulski. "This surname seems to sound familiar. Is that the fat mole back then?" Seeing Dumbledore nodding, even Grindelwald couldn't help being slightly dazed. "The world is really amazing. How could that fat man be so lucky? He got the favor of a wizard, could survive against me, Grindelwald, and finally met Dumbledore, the greatest white wizard of this century. The son who was born now has also become a troublesome devil," Grindelwald murmured, and after a while, he suddenly laughed out loud, perhaps thinking of the obstacles that Roman's father, Jacob, that fat mole, had caused to his plan to rule the wizarding world. Grindelwald's interest in Roman suddenly appeared on his face. "So, that Silver Demon King kid also made me your bounty, huh? It's really interesting." Looking at his good friend, the relaxed smile that bursts out after hearing something interesting, if it weren't for the thin body under the thin prison uniform, Dumbledore would still be able to notice it. The other party may still have some psychological comfort at this moment. "It can be seen that Albus, you are really in a lot of trouble. At such a young age, you are able to master the power of a boy who is just as ruthless as you." "No, that boy is ruthless, and he also knows how to intimidate and exploit people's fears and desires. Albus, you seem to be no match for him." Dumbledore was silent. The first generation of the Dark Lord was imprisoned, the second generation of the Dark Lord was dying, and now there is a Silver Lord, but he is able to be worshipped by the entire British wizarding world as a Demon King. What a shame. Interesting times. "Albus, you took away from me the position of leader of the wizarding world that should have belonged to me. How do you feel now?" Dumbledore was suddenly annoyed. "I didn't want to be a wizard leader back then." Grindelwald waved his hand. He no longer wanted to mention what happened back then. There was silence for a long time, and just when the prison guard reminded him that time was about to end for the first time, Grindelwald suddenly slowly raised his head. "Dumbledore, you said back then that I appeared because I was needed by the dangerous era. I think that compared to my era, the current era of the Silver Demon King is more dangerous. You need to be in some places where you can't make concessions." Some concessions have been made. Dumbledore left. In the top floor prison of Nurmengard, looking at the heavy dark clouds that could not be seen outside, Grindelwald's murmur was covered by the thunder amidst the intense coughing. "Silver Lord, Roman Kulski, what an interesting time." Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Outside the Palace of Truth, on a huge open space where a large-scale space-folding spell has been released, a number of little wizards are busy chattering. Wingardium Leviosa, stay sang sang. On the open space, there are huge blocks of 4 to 5 cubic meters in size, boxy and special stones of unknown material, which are neatly placed here. Harry Potter carefully chanted the spell while carefully moving the wand in his hand, controlling the huge boulder floating in front of him. He walked towards a special imprinted area above the open space, and at this moment, there were not a few people like Harry Potter, Draco Malfoy in Slytherin, Pansy Parkinson, Crabbe Vincent and more, as well as Hermione from Ravenclaw and the others, as well as the young wizards from the other 2 colleges, are all busy here. Roman stands on the top floor of the Palace of Truth, holding a bottle of purple magic potion in his hand, which is being slowly stirred by him with a special frequency and angle. "Hiss, Master, your decision is undoubtedly absolutely correct, But I don't understand. Even if I don't use these little wizards, I can completely build the Warcraft fortress you want. It's just moving some stones. Where do you need to teach these little wizards any spells? Your spells are so precious. How can you take them out so easily? Elizabeth floated beside Roman, looking through the window at the figures of wizards who looked like little ants below, and her words revealed deep confusion. On the side, Wednesday, who was holding a notebook and recording something, the magic quill in his hand, paused for a while. Elizabeth asked a question she was equally puzzled about. Roman smiled faintly, looking through the window at the busy little wizards outside. In a pair of pupils, the light of the pale golden text flashes non-stop. However, the knowledge content in their Dharma temple, in his mind, is rapidly increasing at an unprecedented growth rate. The completion degree of each keyword with special meaning is also rising steadily. Research on the degree of magic induced by different ones, 79% completed and growing. Research on the specificity of the operation of Parseltong blood magic power, 12% completed, growing. Conjecture about the wizarding bloodline of the Malfoy family, 59% completed, growing. Advanced floating curse, the curse of the sky, 44% completed, growing. Today is only the first day that the little wizards have officially received their F-class missions. However, the precious data Roman has harvested in his mind at this moment is something he could not collect for several years when he was imprisoned in Azkaban. Exist. In just a short while, some of the simple keywords Dharma Temple already showed the words 100% completed. Along with it, there was a large amount of unfamiliar information, which was quickly loaded in Roman's mind. This kind of spiritual sublimation experience made the shaking of the potion in Roman's hand become more freehand and pleasant. While answering the two people's doubts, there was also a light tune in his mouth. Two beautiful ladies, you should know. Although I will not kill people easily, I am still the Silver Demon King, not a philanthropist. What these little wizards are doing is far more significant to me than their death, and it's just some improved low-level spells, even if they are taught to them. It's not an easy thing for them to really learn. As Roman spoke, the shaking movement of the potion bottle in his hand suddenly stopped. The sunlight shining through the window showed that the potion in the bottle had changed from purple to a grey-white chaotic color. A look of excitement flashed in his eyes. Today is indeed a very good day for harvesting. After many days of research and preparation, and even several nights of continuous fighting, Roman, who never stopped for a moment, finally completed the preparation of a new bottle of potion at this moment. Master, let me try it first. Elizabeth looked at Roman getting ready to come up and sighed, and calmed down a bit. However, Roman has very strong confidence in his calculations and research. Elizabeth, don't worry. Everything is under my control. In theory, I have the means to deal with any accident that may occur. The materials for this potion are not easy to obtain. As he said that, without waiting for the other party to stop him, Roman instantly unscrewed the cap of the medicine bottle in his hand. Oh, a sound like an oxygen cylinder leaking sounded from the moment the medicine bottle was opened. The next moment, a thick dark grey cloud gushed out from it. As if with life, it turned into a vague human form. Instantly into Roman's body from Roman's mouth and nose and other places as the entrance. Hiss, isn't the potion you researched, Roman, not used for drinking? Wednesday stepped aside nervously, looking at Roman, who was hunched over and constantly inhaling the strange cloud. He couldn't hold back his complaints after all. Flipping through the notebook in his hand, he finally found a name that Roman temporarily gave this potion on a page of records a few days ago. Grey Barrow Lament. At the same time, there was a crash. As one of the few Dumbledores in Hogwarts who had permission to operate, his figure suddenly appeared in his office. Just took a breath. In my mind, I couldn't help but think of my good friend's suggestion. Make concessions on some things, based on the other party's understanding of him. Dumbledore knew that what the other party said was not for him to compromise with Roman. After all, Roman's current impact on the wizarding world was not his. The White Wizard can compromise. He must come up with a coping strategy as soon as possible. Then, when Grindelwald was unable to come out to help him, Dumbledore immediately understood the concessions and compromises that the other party said. Roman Kulski, you really gave me a big problem. Huh? Dumbledore walked to the window and was about to take a look at the Palace of Truth located on the edge of the Forbidden Forest outside the window. He was muttering in his mouth and was about to say something when he was suddenly interrupted by busy people, attracted by the figure. Watershit. When Professor McGonagall and the others received Dumbledore's summons, they instantly knew what the other party was doing with 507. Arriving at the principal's office, as soon as he entered the door, he saw Dumbledore with a gloomy face, with dissatisfaction almost written on his face. Minerva, Phileas, Snape. I need an explanation. Professor McGonagall hesitated, glanced at the people around her, and finally, as the vice principal, she spoke first. Albus, the situation is completely different from what we thought. At the beginning, we did what you said, putting various restrictions on the little wizards and not letting them see the wizards. B.1. But they still have to peek, don't they? Dumbledore scowled. Seeing several people nodding, Dumbledore immediately sat upright in dissatisfaction. Then why don't you just confiscate the wizard's book? Professor McGonagall and the others did not speak, but they all looked out the window. In an instant, Dumbledore understood the reason. Indeed, as the producer of the Wizard's Book, Roman is still in Hogwarts. Even if he were standing at the window of the Palace of Truth at this moment, he could still be far away. See them here. In Dumbledore's eyes, Hogwarts, which was a stronghold in the struggle between him and Roman, had already collapsed. Strong strength, strong support from his parents, and Roman's bounty mission that completely grasps the little wizard's ideas and has no ambition at all. It can be said that Roman has laid the road to promotion to become stronger and become a powerful demon king like himself, which is in front of all Xiaogang. In this case, let alone Dumbledore's excuse that the Silver Lord has ulterior motives is not tenable at all. Even the parents of these little wizards knew that Roman had some evil purpose. Not necessarily anyone can resist this fatal temptation. The Silver Devil has really fully mobilized the learning enthusiasm of these little wizards. During this period, the little wizards who came to me to ask questions about magic spells made me a little busy, Professor Flitwick said meaningfully. Dumbledore understood what he meant instantly. Now I am trying to stop the little wizards, use their Wizard's Book, and take on the task of Roman, the Silver Demon, and fight against everyone. It won't take long for this kind of thing to be passed down to the family by the little wizard. At that time, Dumbledore may have to face pressure from the entire wizarding world. And the fact is just as Professor Flitwick said. The day after Dumbledore met his best friend, formal notification letters from members of the Hogwarts School Board were delivered to him. Along with the letter came Lucius Malfoy, the representative of the school board of directors. Lucius, it seems that you are relieved of the pain that the Silver Demon King gave you back then. He casually threw the school board notice that required full cooperation with Roman to carry out Hogwarts wizarding teaching reform into the fireplace. Dumbledore spoke. However, Lucius, this does not prevent me from allowing our children to receive the teachings of the most powerful wizard in the world. Chapter 61 Wizard Noble Mythical Alchemy Middle. Body of God. Please subscribe the most powerful wizard in history. Dumbledore narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Lucius Malfoy, who did not show any discomfort when these words were spoken in front of him. After a brief moment of astonishment, his eyes gradually became serious. It seems that our Mr. Silver Demon King is indeed not fooling around with the things he has done during this period. Lucius Malfoy, even if you have had your backs broken by him, you still have to hand your children into his hands, and then let them become like you. To people like the Silver Demon King, bow your head and proclaim yourself. Seeing Dumbledore constantly stirring up dissension, and even making subtle hints about the future safety of their children, Lucius didn't speak, but suddenly let out a chuckle. The shocking remarks Roman made in front of all the British wizards a few days ago appeared in his mind inexplicably arrogant, full of endless contempt and ridicule. However, when a person's strength reaches that of Roman, who is enough to crush the entire British wizarding world with one person, these seemingly so-called negative characters will appear. All will undergo fundamental changes in the eyes of Lucius and other conquered people. Professor Dumbledore, it seems that as a member of the school board, it is very necessary for me to come here in person today. As the principal of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, the mind and vision you have shown at this moment are indeed beyond our imagination. You are the greatest white wizard of this century. Of course we know that if our children are allowed to worship and follow the Silver Devil, they will most likely become very dangerous people in the future, and may even become prey in the eyes of even more dangerous wizards. But at least the emergence of Professor Roman gives us a better choice compared to the little sheep that walked out of Hogwarts. I'm sorry, but all of our pureblood wizard family leaders agree that we would rather our children be the wolves that walked out of the Silver Devil's palace. After Lucius said so much, looking at Dumbledore who was deep in thought in front of him, he once again delivered a piece of bombshell news. Principal Dumbledore, in addition to the teaching reforms implemented by Professor Roman at Hogwarts, as the representative of the school board, I have another important thing to inform you today. Looking at the confused Dumbledore, Lucius looked directly at him. After our unanimous discussion, in view of your performance as the principal of Hogwarts over the years, and Professor Roman as the honorary principal, the teaching atmosphere of Hogwarts has made immediate progress in a short period of time. We will place you on probation for 2 years, Headmaster Dumbledore. I'm sorry if you don't have outstanding results during your tenure within 2 years. We have communicated with Minister Fudge and the others. It is not impossible for the Silver Demon Mr. Roman Kulski to serve as the official principal of Hogwarts. Dumbledore looked at Lucius standing in front of him in shock. Remove me? Support the Silver Devil as the principal of Hogwarts? Lucius, are you sure there is nothing wrong with your brain? Dumbledore never imagined that the current British wizarding world's pursuit of Roman, the Silver Demon, would have reached such a morbid level. Just over a month ago, he pressed you hard on the ground of the arena and rubbed you wildly. Have you forgotten all this? What a dangerous guy he is, don't you know? Lucius smiled and said nothing. Of course they knew about Roman's danger, but it was precisely because of Roman's extreme danger and strength that he even had no cover for his purpose. The result of such honesty is the British wizards who were supposed to avoid him began to pursue him enthusiastically, hoping that they, or the descendants of the family, could get enough power from Roman. Even if these people exist, In the end they will only be cultivated by Roman, a pursuer who drives himself to become stronger. However, don't they already have fierce conflicts and hatred with the Silver Demon King? Perhaps it was self-deception. Perhaps it was a temporary surrender to reality, without Dumbledore even thinking of it. The entire British wizarding world, from top to bottom, from the elderly to the children, everyone has taken the initiative to offer their knees to Roman, the rampant Silver Devil. When Lucius walked out of Dumbledore's office, he did not leave directly. Instead, he walked to the Slytherin Academy area. In a magic training ground, he found his son and several of his followers. It's just that it's different from the Draco in his memory who has nothing to do and wanders around every day. The Draco and several of his followers in front of him now seem to be completely different people. Fainted. No, there must be something wrong. What did Professor Flitwick say just now? Goyle, show me your notes. Fainted. Boom. With Draco's several adjustments and notes for reference, a target was instantly knocked down by a single blow. Ba bang bang. Lucius, who had watched the scene the whole time, his eyes were full of relief and shock. Fainting to the ground is not something a first-year wizard should master. However, his son was able to master it initially at this age. Lucius clapped his hands and walked out of the corner. Zigwang immediately placed a dragon on Draco's waist. On a bag, there is a dark red book. To be able to learn an offensive spell like fainting at this age, Draco, it seems that there have been a lot of things recently that you didn't have time to talk about in your letter. Hearing his father say such words of praise for himself for the first time, Draco was stunned, and then his handsome little face turned red with excitement. With a proud look on his face, he glanced at the few followers who were still practicing magic spells while holding their breath. Yes, father, I recently learned the levitation spell very well from Professor Flitwick, and then took on an F-level bounty mission. I used some accumulated Demon King points to exchange for a magic weapon called Frey, from the Palace of Truth. The scroll of knowledge of its magic circuit. Looking at Draco, who was telling him endlessly about his experiences during this period, especially in his increasingly confident A's, Lucius suddenly became more determined in his choice. In the past, Draco was indeed a very confident boy, but this kind of confidence comes more from the glory of the Malfoy family. But it is different now. Lucius can feel that the source of this confidence is more caused by the improvement of his own strength every day. Obviously, after Roman created the Wizard's Book, and their Silverlord's bounty mission, that Dumbledore was extremely right about, all the little wizards in Hogwarts lived a very fulfilling life every day. Afterwards, Draco took out Wizard Use. After telling Lucius some of the things on it, Lucius looked at their Wizard's Book in his hand, which had a powerful confusion spell on it, preventing him from seeing the content on it, and it was inevitable that he felt a little longing in his heart. By the way, Draco, can you tell me what Freyad said you just said? What is it? It sounds like some kind of theoretical knowledge. Draco nodded, and then a strong emotion of admiration immediately burst out in his eyes. Yes, father, this is indeed a magic theory. It is an improved way of operating magic that Hogwarts does not have. When operating during battle, it can not only increase the power of magic spells by 25%, it can also reduce magic power consumption to a certain extent. Although I don't know why I chose this name, this thing must have been invented by His Majesty the Silver Demon King. Draco told the story, then noticed that his father was hesitant to speak. He immediately thought of what the other party wanted to do, but he shook his head in disappointment. I'm sorry, father, what I exchanged is only a one-time F-level scroll of Freyad's magic circuit, which has a memory restriction spell on it. I can't tell or write out its specific content. Perhaps fearing that his father would be disappointed, Draco hurriedly explained. But His Majesty the Silver Demon King's assistant, Miss Wednesday, said that F-level things are basically disposable, or this kind of magic theory, or potions. But more advanced rewards can be saved permanently. Then, as if he thought of something, he glanced around and lowered his voice. By chance, I heard that Miss Elizabeth wanted to try the wizard's snacks, so I gave all the snacks that my mother asked the owl to bring me to Miss Elizabeth. As a result, Miss Elizabeth told me that His Majesty the Silver Demon King has prepared a more advanced reward, the most advanced S-class magic potion, which can even allow people to permanently master the power of blood similar to that of magical creatures. Father, I will definitely work hard to become such a powerful wizard, receive more advanced Demon King tasks, and then let the Malfoy family become a wizard noble with the power of blood in the future. Lucius was so shocked by his son's words that he was speechless for a long time. On the one hand, it was the content revealed in his words, and on the other hand, it was that sentence that almost spoke of the wizard noble in his heart. Wizard nobles, damn it. Isn't this the pursuit of these pure-blood wizards? And when he thought about the power of blood that his son said could be passed on to future generations of family members, Lucius gradually became a little uneasy at the moment. Tremblingly, he reached out and patted his son's head. Draco, you are very good. I am very satisfied with your recent progress. You will definitely be the pride of the Malfoy family. When Lucius left here quickly, the words "the pride of the Malfoy family" were still echoing in Draco's head. There was no doubt that Draco was destined to spend this night in excitement. That night, Lucius couldn't wait to return to his family, and urgently summoned all the pureblood wizard family patriarchs together. The moment he told everyone about the information he got from his son during his trip to Hogwarts, everyone gasped in horror, even some old pureblood wizards who were already old and seemed to be blown down by a gust of wind at any time. At this moment, they all jumped up from their seats in shock. Walter? Lucius, are you sure you're not making fun of us? God, let wizards have the power of blood that only magical creatures can have. This is crazy. Yes, but if it is the Silver Demon King, maybe he can really do it. No. Thinking about the powerful magical creature next to him that looks like the mythical Quetzalcoatl, maybe he can already. Done. Yes, I think so too. Don't forget, his godfather is Newt Scamander. His research in the field of magical creatures is the best in the entire wizarding world. One of the best existences. Everyone said something to each other, and Lucius didn't even need to explain it to them. Everyone had already completed their own thinking in an instant, and they were convinced of the existence of bloodline power. Suspect. Lucius, this news is really good. There is no doubt that this will be the real way out for our pureblood wizard families in the future. If a family has create a powerful bloodline power, and then master the corresponding magic spell. Wizard nobles. We are the nobles of the wizarding world. Everyone went crazy. In addition to the ancient family assets passed down and some mythical legends, the so-called pureblood wizard family that they have always promoted and flaunted has no roots at all. How independent from the top of the wizarding world. This is why they have always been regarded as rich clowns by other people in the wizarding world. The pureblood wizard they promoted was like a castle in the air from the beginning. However, the emergence of the Silver Demon King and his other party's superb potion science ability has made the pureblood wizards find what they should pursue in an instant. These pureblood wizard families joined the Death Eaters and were loyal to Voldemort. But it was also because the other party proposed to rule the wizarding world and then gave these pureblood families actual power. However, the appearance of the Silver Demon King Roman made the so-called power vulnerable to strength. There is no doubt that it is obviously more appropriate for the family to master the power of blood and become a wizard noble than to rule the wizarding world in a nonsensical way, and the path is also clearer. Lucius, I think His Majesty the Silver Demon King may be a very good person to be loyal to. At this moment, Voldemort still didn't know that he had followers who had been loyal to him. Without even thinking about it, he secretly decided to change the foyer. Now, late at night, a figure cautiously came to the door of the Palace of Truth, reaching out and preparing to knock on the grand door in front of him. King Lee's, however. The next moment, wow, the door in front of him has been slowly opened, revealing a hole for one person to enter. When Professor Quirrell walked in, it closed again instantly. Professor Quirrell, come late at night, it seems that you have the same concerns as Professor Flitwick. Roman's slightly frivolous voice came from the side. Professor Quirrell looked back, but the next moment his body was suddenly startled. Even Voldemort in his body felt a burst of nervousness, and hastily restrained all the breath in his body. Flame. Professor Flitwick. You too. Equally embarrassing. There was Professor Flitwick who was sitting in front of Roman at the moment. On the table in front of him were stacks of precious magic books that looked old. Facing Professor Quirrell's greeting, he just nodded awkwardly. Professor Flitwick, as expected of a person from an ancient wizard family, these books related to goblin magic are indeed very precious. It is considered an A-level, which, there is no problem with the task of collecting teachers' classics. And I can pay you something worth 170,000 devil points. I wonder if Professor Flitwick needs anything? Professor Quirrell, who walked over to the side, watched Roman wave his hand, and densely packed golden characters appeared on the void in front of them. This is a list of convertibles that they can't even understand. Smiling, Roman slowly put down a book of wizards brought by Professor Flitwick called Legend of the Realm of the Demon Realm of Lonesome, but a turmoil had already set off in his heart. Wave. The moment he read this book just now, there, Dharma Temple, in his mind suddenly had a huge reaction. A brand new synthetic tree appeared in his mind. Magic Essence Compound Potion, 100% completed, plus, any wizard blood essence research, 0% completed, plus, any high-level magic creature creation theory, completed, 100%, plus, fairy soul extraction, 0% completed, equals, mythical alchemy middle. Body of God. Chapter 62, Tea can also be enjoyed in the West, and tea art is inherited. Please subscribe. Magic Compound Potion, 100% completed, plus, research on the essence of any wizard's bloodline, 0% completed, plus, the theory of creating any high-level magical creature, 100% completed, plus, fairy essence extraction, completed 0%, equals, mythical alchemy middle. Body of God. Feel the information that appears in your mind, especially at the end of the synthesis formula, those golden red noble words. If it weren't for the calm effort for a long time, plus there are Flitwick and Quirrell in front of you, oh, no, and our senior Tom Riddle. Roman was really afraid that he would be able to transfer to the table on the spot and have a crazy tap dance. These are all things I can choose? Professor Flitwick stared blankly at the list formed by the golden words in front of him. In addition to the name, Here is a brief introduction. There are even many things that make Professor Flitwick, the Professor of Charms at Hogwarts, look confused and completely unable to understand what the body is. According to your request, Professor Flitwick, these are all about the improvement of spells. The successes I have researched over the years, some can greatly shorten the magic circuit of the spell release, and some can reduce the process of reciting the spell. Others can simplify the spell without reducing the power of the spell. In other words, if you master all these things, and use this new set of magic theories to improve the spells you have now mastered. Even if I don't need to teach you one by one, I can teach you your abilities in the field of magic, so that most of the magic spells in the wizarding world today can be transformed into wandless casting. Song is a matter of time, let alone Professor Flitwick now. Even Voldemort, who was hiding in Professor Quirrell's body, couldn't help but secretly spy on him again. If what Roman said is true, then it is no exaggeration to say that the list placed in front of the 3 people, at this moment can change the pattern of the wizarding world and is a terrifying endless treasure. Professor Flitwick looked at this dense collection of nearly 100 magic theories with no known specific effects, and he fell into a tangle of arrogance over time. With 17,000 Demon King points, according to the standards here, Professor, you can choose about 3 to 4 magic theories to take away. Of course, my suggestion is that you can actually choose a cheaper one-time memory scroll. After all, if I remember correctly, you have no heirs or family. When Roman said this, he paused slightly and looked at Professor Flitwick, who shook his head firmly. 190. Suddenly he thought of something, and he couldn't help but look at this short, but giant-like professor in surprise and admiration. No, Roman, I don't need those memory scrolls. I need these theoretical knowledge that can be passed on to others. And one more thing, I am not alone. There are as many as 5 young wizards trained by me in the entire British wizarding world. Thousands of people. You are one of them. I don't have family. Roman. If Roman could still mock Dumbledore's stupidity and hypocrisy unceremoniously in front of Dumbledore, who is known as the greatest wizard of this century. At this moment, he looked at Professor Flitwick in front of him, who had once guaranteed himself to enter the restricted book area to study. Roman actually felt a sense of shame in this brief moment. He used his family's inheritance as a bargaining chip to exchange precious curse theories from Roman, and brought them back for study and study, but his purpose was not to solve unstable factors like Voldemort and Drummond like Dumbledore did. His purpose is very simple, to study more meaningful spells and then teach them to his students. This is a true Ravenclaw preacher who believes in magic and wisdom. Looking at Professor Flitwick, who was hesitantly selecting the theories from the list, Roman pondered for a moment and waved his hand casually. The next moment, stacks of thick books suddenly erupted from the shadow of the void. It fell in front of Professor Flitwick, and there were 2 piles neatly piled up. Looking at the different color packages on these books, Professor Lodge on the side instantly understood that the books here contained at least 5 sets of things on the list. Professor Flitwick, to be honest, you are really a great professor. It is an honor for Ravenclaw to have a dean like you. Looking at the books in front of me, I heard Roman's sincere recognition and praise. Professor Flitwick also had a slightly sour nose and his eye sockets were slightly red. There is no doubt that at this moment, no matter how vicious Roman is in the eyes of outsiders, or is regarded as such a cancer in the wizarding world, such a sincere recognition has made Professor Flitwick understand the nature of the person in front of him from the bottom of his heart. Roman Goldstein-Kulski, Ravenclaw is also proud of you. You are my best student. Professor Flitwick, who was carrying a small box and walking towards the outside of the palace, paused when he reached the door. Roman, don't waste your talent. God will not allow talent and wisdom to come to one person at the same time. If it does happen, then he must, BCDC, need to entrust this person to bring some precious gifts to the world. Looking at Flitwick leaving, Roman took a deep breath and suddenly sighed. Why is such a great wizard not the greatest white wizard of this century, but Dumbledore? Because Dumbledore is powerful enough. A sinister voice came from Professor Quirrell behind him. Roman turned around and saw this guy, who had taken off the turban on his head at some unknown time. Looking at the ugly catfish-like face on the back of the other person's head, Roman's mouth twitched. Senior Tom, although I agree with your point of view, if I suddenly laugh out loud during the next conversation, please believe that I just suddenly thought of something happy and I am definitely not laughing at you. Ha 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 ha. It's so funny. Ha 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 ha. Voldemort, take a deep breath to prevent your already weak self from being pissed off by the damn bastard in front of you. After a brief silence, Voldemort finally spoke slowly. He told me the purpose of looking for Roman today. Roman, you and I are both Demon Kings. I think we can. Excuse me. Voldemort had just said a few words when Roman suddenly raised his hand to interrupt him. He had a suppressed smile on his face, and when he spoke with a face-saving mockery. Don't put gold on your face anymore. The devil. I am the devil, and Grindelwald is the devil. With your ghostly appearance now, can you also be called the devil? Senior Tom, sometimes I really wonder, what is it about your vision and IQ that makes you feel that you are the second-generation Dark Lord and you truly deserve the title? Voldemort had an ugly face, his eyes were squinted in anger, and his long and narrow face like a flounder became even more ridiculous. Roman turned his head and covered his mouth. Puff ha 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 ha. Voldemort, Quirrell, who was possessed by Voldemort, became nervous and anxious, fearing that his weak master would not be able to tell the difference between the big and small kings. At this time, he controlled his body and had a head-on confrontation with the Silver Demon. At that time, even if he wanted to turn against the water temporarily, he would kneel on the ground with his back to Roman. The second-generation Dark Lord. That's ridiculous. Dark Lord Grindelwald's influence back then stretched across Europe and America, and even had his influence in Asia. What about our great senior Tom Riddle? Hogwarts, the British Ministry of Magic, Azkaban. Wow, 3 points and 1 line. You are really powerful enough, and your influence has already spread beyond England. Roman's exaggerated expression, coupled with a merciless sarcasm, made Voldemort's eyes more intense with killing intent. However, the result of this attitude is Roman turned his head and covered his mouth. PFFT ha 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 ha. Fack. Enough. Roman Kulski, I didn't come to you today to enjoy the same treatment as Dumbledore. Voldemort was impotent and furious. Roman also tried his best to hold back his laughter, but ha 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 ha. Let me tell you something, Senior Tom, don't you really think about it, and enter the film and television industry? I think you are a person with great comedy talent. If necessary, my father in the United States will. There is quite a big entertainment industry. Enough. Seeing Voldemort being so humorless, Roman smacked his mouth and silently suppressed his laughter. He waved his hand to Elizabeth, who had quietly appeared here at some point, and the latter silently backed out after glancing at Voldemort with a vicious look on his face. Okay, the lively joking is over, so what does Senior Tom want to do with me, my junior? If you want to talk about joining forces to deal with Dumbledore, then I can only ask you to leave with great regret. After all, Principal Dumbledore is my godfather's friend, my guiding light at Hogwarts, and my guide on the path to magic. Merlin, looking at Roman, who was holding a cup of black tea and saying such shameless words of praise with a look of disdain. Voldemort could only swallow this thought silently. I hope you can help me get the Sorcerer's Stone from Dumbledore. Roman pouted. Then our Senior Tom, what can you give? What do you want? Roman smiled slightly. Be my dog? Voldemort. Roman Kulski, I'm telling you something serious. Dumbledore must have been following you for a while, and you will definitely not feel good if you are being watched by this old thing. Help me restore my heyday, and when I finish ruling the entire British wizarding world, I can go back and help you rule the American wizarding world. However, this time, Roman not only had no intention of bargaining with the other party. The look of ridicule even appeared on his face again. Tom Riddle, it seems that Horcrux manufacturing has damaged your brain. Voldemort's pupils shrank. He couldn't believe that Roman even knew about this. However, Roman didn't care about what the other party was thinking and stood up slowly. Rule the wizarding world? I'm sorry, I don't have the slightest interest in this kind of children's game of fighting for who will be their father. Helping you restore your heyday is not difficult for me. But, Tom, you have to understand what chips you can give. If you pay, you will give rewards, right? Just like our Professor Quirrell, he gave his body for you to drive. You always need to give him something he wants, don't you? Professor Quirrell's face tightened. However, Roman has no interest in chatting with the sewer rat anymore. I waved my hand casually, but there was no specific reaction. The next moment, Voldemort was shocked to find that he had appeared outside the gate of the palace. Oh, shit. Master, you must hide, and Dumbledore will find out here. Voldemort, who was about to scold Roman, chose to keep his mouth shut instantly. Looking at Quirrell, who staggered away outside the window, the corner of Roman's mouth curled up slightly. Raise one hand. The next moment, there was a crash. A strange grey-green energy flame appeared in his hands. Senior Tom, you reminded me, how could I have forgotten such an interesting little toy as the Horcrux? The next day, in the Hogwarts dining room, with Roman, the Silver Demon, joining Hogwarts, the house elves have clearly felt that the workload during breakfast has increased significantly. In the past, at least a quarter of the little wizards would miss breakfast because they stayed in bed or for other reasons. However, with the addition of the Wizard's Book, created by Roman, Hogwarts no longer has a bedridden little wizard. Neville received the task of cultivating low-level potions for the Silver Demon. Fortunately, Professor Sprout can teach these things. She said that Neville is very talented in this area. As for me, I received the task of entering the Forbidden Forest to collect green-eyed mushrooms. Don't laugh, Harry, there is no problem with my spell. At the Gryffindor dining table, Seamus Frederick's eyebrows were dancing as he talked about his plans for the day. When everyone heard that he was actually going to enter the outskirts of the Forbidden Forest, they all chuckled. Seamus is now a Gryffindor, and even a celebrity in Hogwarts. For nothing else, just when others can still complete some simple, Silver Demon King bounty mission, by casting magic spells such as the levitation spell. Then he really has nothing to do. All magic spells will become violent and explode uncontrollably when they are in his hands. Simo, the Forbidden Forest is a very dangerous place. I advise you not to enter it easily. Harry reminded him kindly, but Ronald, who was sitting aside and was completely isolated, wanted to say something, but no one paid him any attention. During this period, because of Ronald's reckless behavior in the Roman lecture hall, even his two twin brothers have become much more honest and their pranks have stopped recently. He gritted his teeth and was about to apologize to Harry and end it all. Suddenly bursts of low cries came. It's Professor Roman. Professor Roman is here for breakfast. Silver Demon King, my god, he is coming towards me. Woo woo woo. His Majesty the Silver Demon King. Roman walked into the restaurant with a smile, facing the little wizards who were a little reserved but full of admiration in their eyes. He smiled and nodded, and sat down in his teacher's seat. Soon, a famous house elf placed plates of sumptuous meals on his table. Watching Roman quietly eating breakfast as if no one was around, even though someone wanted to come up and say hello. In the end, due to a kind of pressure, he temporarily stopped this offensive move. Slytherin's seat. Pansy, what are you doing? Smelling bursts of fresh fragrance coming from beside him, Draco turned his head and saw Pansy Parkinson, who was holding a teapot and a bag of carefully wrapped tea leaves. She had stopped eating breakfast and suddenly started to get busy. Without a doubt, I'm taking my chances. Professor Roman, I heard that you like Oriental green tea. My mother taught me how to make tea. I wonder if you are interested in trying it? Roman raised his eyebrows, smiled slightly, and pointed to the table in front of him. Immediately, Pansy Parkinson, who was originally anxious and forced to be calm, could not help showing ecstasy, and hurriedly poured tea for Roman carefully. She doesn't look like a good girl. Wednesday's voice echoed in his ears. Roman smiled faintly. Of course, she is very similar to her mother back then, and the green tea is also very good. Chapter 63 Roman, Professor Dumbledore, why are you so serious? Please subscribe. Seeing Roman nodding his head while sipping the Oriental green tea prepared by Pansy with a satisfied look on his face. These little wizards had not yet had time to express their envy. Next moment, Pansy Parkinson, I can see that your mother must have been very careful when teaching you how to make tea. She even remembers my preferred tea temperature, Roman commented, and there was a strange emotion in his words, but no one present could hear it. He looked at the short-haired little Lolita who was smiling and pouring herself tea, especially the other person's familiar pair of eyes, which could see through the other person's eyes at first glance, which did not hide his intentions at all. Roman took a sip of the tea in the cup, as if he thought of something happy and interesting. Suddenly he stretched out a hand and gently tapped the other person's forehead. The next moment, a stream of information poured into the other party's mind. Seeing Pansy's expression of ecstasy after a brief period of shock, the corners of Roman's mouth raised slightly. If you have a chance, say hello to your mother for me. When I was in Azkaban, I didn't have the chance to attend her wedding. This curse can be regarded as a small gift from me to compensate her. The word spread throughout the restaurant, and everyone gasped excitedly when they saw Pansy, who had obviously received some kind of reward from Roman. God, no, this is okay? Draco looked at Pansy with a satisfied smile in shock. He involuntarily took out a leather shoe brush from his body with one hand, looked down, and then looked hesitantly in the direction of Roman. Do you really want to go up here? Draco looked around. However, just when he hesitated, another figure quickly ran towards Roman's direction. Professor Roman, will you still give lectures in the near future? I have memorized the Encyclopedia of Toadstools and 1,000 magic herbs and the mushrooms you mentioned during this period, but I have many questions about potions that I want to ask you. Looking at Hermione, who was looking forward to it, before Roman could speak, Pansy Parkinson stopped him in front of her with a dissatisfied look on her face. Gryffindor, didn't you see Professor Roman having breakfast? Hermione raised an eyebrow, showing no fear. Oh? Really? Of course I saw that Professor Roman was having a meal, but it seemed that some people didn't see it. My mother is a friend of Professor Roman, but I am different from you, a mole. Hermione's eyes narrowed slightly, and the teasing look in her eyes disappeared. It seems like you look down on moles, Miss Parkinson, but don't you know that there are many great people among moles, including Professor Roman's father? Muzz is a very famous top minister in the United States. Oh my god, Miss Parkinson, is this what your mother taught you? What nonsense are you talking about? You bitchy, I'm going to tear your mouth apart. Seeing both parties pulling out their wands instantly, Roman raised his eyelids slightly. Quiet. Looking at the two people who instantly lowered their heads as if admitting their mistake, Roman snorted softly and waved his hand. Miss Parkinson, it seems that you still have a lot to learn from your mother. In addition, Miss Hermione, you are a smart girl. Use your wisdom where it should be used. Looking at the two people who were still looking at each other intently as they left, Wednesday, who was standing next to Roman, glanced at the corners of his fiancée's lips and snorted softly. So, even teasing a little girl can make you feel happy? Roman shrugged. Maybe, but you seem a little unhappy recently. You must be missing your younger brother too much, right? Wednesday said no more. And seeing Hermione and Pansy leaving, even though Roman's scolding just now frightened these little wizards, they still thought of how powerful Roman was when he created the Palace of Truth a month ago. Finally, someone came up again. Professor Roman, I am Seamus Finnegan. I accepted the task you issued to collect green-eyed mushrooms. Looking at Seamus, who was obviously looking for something to talk about. The Gryffindor wizards not far behind him all lowered their heads nervously. Oh my god, why didn't anyone stop him? The Silver Demon King was obviously a little angry just now. Ronald looked at the dumbfounded Seamus with a sad and worried look. But he underestimated the number of dumbfounded Gryffindors. My name is Neville Longbottom. Your Majesty the Silver Demon, can you save my parents? My grandma said that in the entire wizarding world, you may be the only one with a calendar. Roman, who was drinking tea, glanced at the two of them. Just a look made the little wizards in the entire restaurant stay silent. Everyone shrank their heads and looked at the two little Gryffindor wizards standing in front of Roman. Oh my god, the Silver Devil will break their necks. No, their souls will be pulled out. My mother told me that if the Silver Devil is angry, even Professor Dumbledore can't save this person. Gryffindor again. These little lions are indeed complete idiots. Yeah, when I saw our Slytherin Miss Parkinson getting the reward, I thought I could take advantage of it. The rustling sound of discussion echoed in the restaurant in an extremely depressing atmosphere. This depressing atmosphere made the two people who were already nervous standing in front of Roman start to have cold sweat gradually break out on their foreheads. Roman's eyes were studying the two of them. They are all familiar characters from the original plot, but they are relatively marginal. But there is no doubt that before traveling to this world, Roman was still very interested in the two people in front of him. One is the exploding curse geek in the world of Harry Potter. One is that through hard work, people can see the opponent's successful counterattack step by step. I know that you two are indeed very good wizards. Work hard. Believe me, you are wizard geniuses. The depressing atmosphere in the restaurant, accompanied by Roman's relaxed compliment, instantly shocked everyone in the restaurant. Even the Slytherin snakes who had been whispering that these two idiots would have their necks broken by Roman. Everyone opened their mouths in shock. The Silver Demon King not only failed to kill them, he even praised these two little lions who looked like they were stunned. Walter, wait. Seamus, who never fails the charms course, and Longbottom, who even needs a memory ball. The Silver Devil actually said that the two of them are geniuses! Draco's hand, which was holding the shoe brush, was shaking with excessive force. He looked in disbelief at the two people who were praised by the Silver Demon Lord before him. The pride in his heart and the desire for Roman's recognition made him unable to accept it no matter what. The genius that a powerful person like the Silver Demon King calls a genius actually exists like this? No, there must be something wrong. Draco glanced around quickly, and suddenly, a flash of light suddenly appeared in his mind. Yes, he has been sitting here. Of course Professor Roman didn't see him. He just stood up and walked over. At this moment, Seamus and Neville, who had never expected to be praised by Roman, both recovered from their shock. A face instantly turned red. Is it true? Professor Roman, do you think I am a genius? Yes, but I still can't even use the floating spell well. I always forget things. Even to cultivate herbs for you, I still need Professor Sprout's help. But I really want to save my parents. Looking at the two people who were so excited that they were about to cry on the spot, Lu Meng smiled slightly. He stood up and reached out to touch the tops of their heads. Of course you are geniuses. Don't forget, I am the Demon King, a very powerful Demon King. I will not tell white lies just to comfort some little wizard. This is a fact. As long as you work hard, I can already see your successful future. At this time, not to mention the little wizards present, even Dumbledore and others who came to inquire after hearing that Roman had come to the restaurant all looked at Roman in shock as if he had changed. That gentle smile, and that encouraging tone. My Lord Merlin, I must not have rested, right? Is this the Silver Demon? Mrs. Hooch, who was responsible for teaching flying lessons, looked at the scene in front of her and murmured to herself blankly. Dumbledore didn't frown deeply and looked around, looking at the little wizards present who were completely attracted by Roman's behavior and looking at the two people who were caressing the heads of Neville and Iago. It's like the seniors with their own halo encourage the juniors. Being unable to cast the floating spell successfully doesn't mean you're not achieving anything. Seamus, you have to learn to find your own bright spots. How about this? Roman smiled slightly as an idea popped into his head. There is a magical creature in the Forbidden Forest called the Acromantula. If you two can work together to bring me a complete Acromantula egg, I'm going to give you all a surprise. As soon as these words came out, there was another gasp in the audience, and Professor McGonagall, who was standing beside Roman, stepped forward hastily. These two children were students of Gryffindor. If they entered the Forbidden Forest, and went deep, it would be very dangerous. No. Professor Roman, please pay attention to your words and deeds, and stop tempting little wizards to do those dangerous things. The Forbidden Forest is not a place where little wizards should set foot. As he spoke, Professor McGonagall looked seriously at the two Seamus, who bowed their heads and said nothing. Mr. Finnegan, Mr. Longbottom, no matter what you think, I must tell you that according to the rules of Hogwarts, young wizards are prohibited from entering the Forbidden Forest. Even if you are now allowed to enter the outer area for short periods of time, the Eight Eyes the Giant Spider is not on the periphery. There are also Acromantula eggs, which are banned from trade by the Ministry of Magic. Professor Roman, you must be aware of this rule. Please give me flowers. Looking at the angry Professor McGonagall, Roman shrugged uninterestedly. However, This attitude is obviously without any attitude of admitting mistakes. Professor McGonagall, I am just teaching them the most basic laws of this world, how much effort you put in, how much you get in return, and as a famous wizard in the wizarding world, you should understand that what you put in will be rewarded. Not everyone can encounter it. Professor McGonagall, you may think I'm luring them into danger, but Roman spread his hands. I am more inclined. I am giving them the opportunity to realize their wishes. It definitely counts. Getting the chance is a shortcut. You kill them. Professor McGonagall grabbed the two of them angrily, and walked in the direction of Gryffindor. However, just when Roman thought that everything today would be over, he stood up without interest and was about to return to his palace. An abrupt voice suddenly sounded from the other side. Professor Roman, please let me go. Everyone turned their heads, and when they saw the figure, they gasped. Walter, Draco, are you crazy? Hurry up and sit down, Draco. That's a necromantula. You will die. Yeah, you're only in the first grade. I'm sure you won't even be able to see the necromantula alive. Even senior wizards like us wouldn't dare to go to that kind of place. The Slytherins around him tried to dissuade him, but even though his body was shaking nervously at this moment, Draco still stood there firmly. He looked at Roman with a look of resignation. Professor Roman, please give me this opportunity, and I will definitely bring you a necromantula egg in its entirety. Mr. Malfoy, sit down and don't be stupid. Snape stepped forward anxiously. However, despite the severe rebuke and warning in his eyes, Draco's body trembled with fright at this moment, but the latter still stood firmly in his position. Superior. Professor Roman, I want to lead the Malfoy family to become a powerful wizard family. I want to become a powerful wizard. I want to make the family have a strong bloodline. All this can only be achieved by I'm willing to risk my life, even if I die in the Forbidden Forest or be expelled from Hogwarts. At this time, everyone seemed to have seen a ghost, looking at Draco Malfoy, who was completely different from before. Even Roman had to admit at this moment that the little Malfoy in front of him was much better than his further back then. Roman suddenly felt that something interesting might be about to happen in the next few days. Will you risk your life for the recognition of your family and fathers? Draco Malfoy, I have to say, you made me look at the name Malfoy with admiration today. It's fair to risk your life for glory. In this case, Draco Malfoy. Roman smiled slightly and suddenly snapped his fingers. The next moment, there, Wizard's book, in Malfoy's waist pocket suddenly glowed with a golden light. Good luck. Also changing at the same time was Seamus Finnegan, who was being held tightly by McGonagall, and there, Wizard's book, on Neville Longbottom. The opportunity is right in front of you. It may be full of fog and thorns, but please don't doubt. Everything you want is at the end of the road. Roman's faint voice echoed in the restaurant. Just when everyone's eyes were looking at Draco and the three of them, Roman was leading a little Wednesday girl and was already walking out of the restaurant. Roman paused as he passed Dumbledore, who had not spoken a word but had a straight face and stared at him with a gloomy look from beginning to end. Professor Dumbledore, why so serious? Dumbledore said nothing, but the coldness in his eyes became more and more bone-chilling. When Roman left, the entire restaurant was in a huge boil. A group of young wizards didn't care that professors like Dumbledore were still here at this moment, so they started talking like crazy and surrounding Draco. Malfoy, do you really want to go deep into the Forbidden Forest? The necromantula is very poisonous. A drop of venom can easily kill many wizards. Yes, and it also has very scary fangs. Listen to me, calm down, Draco, you have to know, that is the Silver Demon. We do not deny that he is very powerful, but he is imprisoned in Azkaban. People who have been imprisoned there for more than 10 years are either murderers or lunatics. Harry also joined the two Gryffindors at this moment. Neville, Seamus, are you going too? No, of course they won't go. Harry, you should prepare for class. Today is Professor Flitwick's Charms class. I heard that he has prepared some new course content for you. Melon Chapter 64 Goodbye Bloodman Barrow, Soul Demon Curse, Huangquan Lantern. Professor Snape, if I were you, I would never allow Mr. Malfoy to enter the Forbidden Forest. Even if I expel him, I think it is responsible for his life. Among the restaurants, after Professor McGonagall left a word, he was going to pull Seamus and Neville away first. Prepare to persuade the two little wizards who were bewitched by the hateful Silver Demon King. However, one of Neville's questions made Professor McGonagall stunned for an instant. Professor McGonagall, is there anything you can do to save my parents? Professor McGonagall was stunned. When the Longbottoms clashed with Voldemort's Death Eaters, they were unfortunately caught by the opponent, and then experienced the terrible Cruciator's curse. The two were directly tortured and went crazy, and are now receiving treatment at Street Mungo's Magical Injury Hospital. However, the so-called treatment here, there is no way at all. Seeing that Professor McGonagall was silent, Neville broke free from the other party's grasp immediately, lowered his head, but his voice was very firm. I know I'm not smart, and I know it's dangerous, but Professor McGonagall, I have to do it. Mr. Longbottom. Professor McGonagall, you are a very good professor, but only Professor Roman can save my parents. Professor McGonagall was shocked, but when he turned his head, he was shocked to find that Seamus Finnegan, who had not spoken all this time, was silently and slowly backing away from them. Seeing this scene, Dumbledore and some other professors were shocked. The former was completely shocked by Roman's one-of-a-kind bewitching methods, while the latter was completely frightened by the madness of these little wizards in front of him. It's a forbidden forest even for wizards like them. For example, Professor Sprout, who is in charge of teaching herbal medicine, and Mrs. Hooch, who is in charge of teaching flying lessons. These wizards who are not very good at fighting, enter it, and they have to take great risks to 2, 3, and if these little wizards who are only in first grade go in. Everyone instantly thought of the tragic scene that was very likely to happen. You really want to let them enter the Forbidden Forest? Almost all magical creatures deep in the Forbidden Forest are very dangerous. Wednesday followed Roman, following suit. Finally I couldn't bear it anymore and asked this question. Hearing this, Roman smiled faintly and was about to say something, when his steps suddenly stopped. The smile on his face slowly faded. Oh ho ho ho, nasty Kulski, Mr. Principal, where are you going? The more than 10 years in Azkaban probably didn't make you forget how to navigate the Hogwarts building, right? Roman looked at the figure penetrating from the ceiling above his head, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Bloody Barrow. Looking at the road in front of him, from the time he traveled to this world until now, when he was still a Hogwarts student, he seemed to be at odds with him. All kinds of Hogwarts ghosts who made trouble for him. When Roman first appeared, the magic power on his body spread quietly around him. Because of the incident in the restaurant, Dumbledore and the others were still in the restaurant, appeasing and persuading the young wizards, while some professors who were not present were also making plans for today's class. As if he had noticed something, Wednesday, who was standing next to Roman, looked warily at the ceiling and floor around him. Mr. Barrow, I have always had a question. I don't seem to have provoked you. Why do you always try to find ways to target me? Roman asked with a smile. In his perception, unfortunately, there were no people or ghosts around at all. Even where they were at this moment, there was not even a single magical portrait that could be seen everywhere in Hogwarts. He didn't seem to notice the coldness in Roman's voice, or because he has absolute confidence in his ghost identity. The Bloodman Barrow didn't mean to hide anything. With thick curly hair and an old and angry face, he just looked at Roman's side. Wednesday. Damn Roman Kulski, there seems to be no shortage of beauties around you. Of course, all of this is because you can shamelessly coerce them. It was the same in Slytherin, and it was the same in Ravenclaw. You bloody scumbag, I will never make it easier for you. Roman frowned, opened his mouth, and stared at the bloody bro floating in front of him with an unbelievable expression. At this moment, the other party still pulled out the non-existent ghost long knife from time to time, and pierced Roman's chest, with an already wretched face, and deliberately made such provocative behavior it made Roman feel sick while sleeping. Hee, it really is a reason that surprised me. Roman murmured. For a long time, he thought that he was studying magic spells, or that he offended this guy in front of him who had been established for as long as Hogwarts without knowing anything. But I never thought that it was all because of my female fate. Ha ha ha. Now that you know this, what can you do? How can you, an evil guy like you, still be appreciated by Helena? I'm not interested in listening to this idiot like a defeated dog, telling some crazy dog-licking lines in front of me. There was a sudden burst of creepy energy from Roman. The moment grey-green magical energy rises. Originally, he was still waving the sword in his hand non-stop at Roman. Even if he couldn't hurt him at all, the Bloodman Barrow, who was still going to be disgusted, froze in an instant. Soul Curse Underworld Lantern. With a clatter, a lantern suddenly appeared in Roman's hand, and before the Bloodman Barrow in front of him could react, in the next 10 moments, 10 big green hands popped out in an instant. Instantly caught the Bloodman Barrow, who didn't know what to do. Damn silver devil, let me out. Dumbledore won't let you go. You can't kill me. Dumbledore will soon find out that I'm missing. You won't get anything good to eat. I have no interest in continuing to listen to this trash talk. Fortunately, in order to deal with this guy, I worked day and night for more than half a month before I researched that bottle of top-notch potion named Grey Barrow's Lamentation. Without anyone noticing, when Roman brought the Bloodman Barrow back to his Palace of Truth, the Bloodman Barrow who was locked in their spirit lamp finally realized the seriousness of the matter. What on earth are you going to do? Damn it, let me out quickly. Let me out, and I swear I will never bother you again. Roman Kulski, what are you going to do? Roman ignored the other party's pleading or insults, and had no intention of hiding the other party, looking at the soul lamp that kept swaying dark green flames on the table. In front of Roman was a mechanical doll that seemed to have many parts completed. The click-click sound of the gears and bearings rotating, accompanied by the operation of Roman's hands, came from the doll's body. And with every movement of Roman, waves of magic power gradually emitted from the doll in front of him. This is surprisingly something similar to an alchemical product. Don't worry, dirty ghost, the master will give you a new home soon. How arrogant you were before. I hope you can still remain immortal in the future. Elizabeth spit out snake letters and floated around their soul lamp. Bloody Barrow, who was imprisoned in it, looked puzzled. At this time, Wednesday, who served as Roman's assistant and handed him the special parts he needed from time to time, was staring at the lantern in front of him with a sinister smile on his face. Don't worry, To a certain extent, you will indeed not die. Of course, at that time, you are still not Bloody Barrow, but it's hard to say. Walter, what does this mean? Let me out. Let me out. Roman did not let Mr. Barrow, who was the first to join the academy in the early days of Hogwarts, wait too long. Although the alchemy products in his hands require him to make parts one by one, the assembly does not take too much time. As the last part was assembled, there were bursts of clicking sounds. A green female-shaped mechanical doll appeared in front of everyone. With a slightly delicate face, if it weren't for the metal body, she would probably be a cute little girl. What on earth are you going to do? Bloody Barrow's horrified voice came. Roman stepped forward, held up their soul lamp in front of him, stared at the green ghost energy body in the lantern, and made a clicking sound from his mouth. Mr. Barrow, to be honest, if it weren't for your provocation again, I might have forgotten you. However, I also want to thank you for allowing me to find a new goal so quickly. It's extremely rare for a ghost to exist from the 11th century to today. If it's Helena Ravenclaw, I might have some trouble if I capture her, but you ... Who cares about you, Bloody Barrow? Roman had a smile on his face. After learning that the other party was constantly targeting him because he was jealous of his femininity, this funny reason could not make him feel the slightest anger. The opposite of looking at the ghost of Bloody Barrow in front of him, who had become a possession in his hands, Roman couldn't hide the smile on his face. A bottle of Grey Barrow's Morning, made with Thestril's heart as the main material, not only improved his mental power to a certain extent, but also gave his magic power the ability to cause damage to the soul and have practical effects. Although this power, named Soul Curse by Roman, consumes magic power 100 times more than ordinary curses, but what also made it easy for Roman was to capture the precious alchemy material of Barrow. Ignoring Bloody Barrow's pleading that almost abandoned his dignity, Roman immediately began to prepare the magic circle for refining his next treasure. Palace of Truth, top floor. Please let me go. I mean no harm, Your Majesty the Silver Demon King. I will never bother you again in the future. Please gently place the pleading Bloodman Barrow, together with a soul-inducing lamp that imprisons him, in the center of the floor with a special formation. Mr. Barrow, although your spirit body will continue to exist, your consciousness will be obliterated by me. Watching Wednesday slowly push the girl doll into the magic circle, Roman said to let the bloody man. Barrow's words were almost frightening. I don't know if you will be reincarnated after you lose consciousness, but ... if you see the god of death, please say hello to him. I hope so too. Waiting to meet him. Saying that, not giving the other party a chance to reply. The moment Wednesday stepped out of the magic circle, dark green flames instantly rose up. Dark green flames rose fiercely on the top floor of the Palace of Truth. At the same time, 4 figures appeared outside the Forbidden Forest of Hogwarts in the early morning. Harry Potter, you have not received the mission from Professor Roman. You will not get any benefits from entering the Forbidden Forest with us. Although not a house, and still the Slytherin wizard who hates Gryffindor the most, Draco still took the initiative and cooperated with Seamus and Neville, who are also determined to enter the depths of the Forbidden Forest. Reached cooperation. However, when setting out in the morning, Draco was still shocked by the sudden addition of Harry Potter. I don't need any mission rewards, I just want to help my friends. Seamus and Neville are my roommates. In this regard, Draco hesitated again and nodded in agreement. Several people raised their heads slightly, looking at the towering Palace of Truth, imagining that a majestic figure must be staring at them on a certain floor of the palace at this moment. But Roman is currently busy making the first alchemical treasure in his life that involves the soul level. I have already forgotten about these little wizards. However, you can also see Dumbledore's office here at this moment. Albus, are you sure you want to watch like this? Harry is among them. There are many dangers in the Forbidden Forest. Professor McGonagall is anxious to stop this. Of the 4 young wizards, 3 are their Gryffindors. If something happens, the Gryffindors will suffer the most. And both Harry's parents and Neville's parents were killed by Voldemort because of the Order of the Phoenix. If their children are ignored because of them, something will happen. Professor McGonagall almost didn't dare think about it anymore. Minerva, don't worry, Harry will be fine. I can see that even Roman won't let anything happen to them. What he wants is to win people's hearts, to win over Harry and the others. The little wizard develops into his own believer. It's not about killing them, Dumbledore said with determination. In the Palace of Truth, he looked at Roman, who was carefully controlling the magic circle and constantly tempering and wearing away the opponent's consciousness amidst Bloody Baron's miserable howls. 1.2 Wednesday and Elizabeth waited nervously outside the formation. Elizabeth, why do I always feel like I've forgotten something? The rustling of insects, if it can be considered friendly when outside the Forbidden Forest. At this moment, as Harry Potter and the others continue to go deeper, a smell like the smell of rotting corpses spread in the air, making the sounds of insects become much more eerie than ever, especially as you get deeper and deeper. The age of the trees in the Forbidden Forest is also getting older. Under the cover of dense trees tens of meters, or even hundreds of meters high, the Forbidden Forest, which should have been at noon, can only. I saw a layer of mist with light. Where exactly is the Acromantula? We must first understand this problem, otherwise we will be in big trouble when the sky darkens completely," Harry Potter said calmly. However, Draco looked at the map in his hand. Looking at everything around them, they didn't know where they were at all. Neville on the side held his wand nervously. "So, without anyone asking for directions, which direction should we go next?" Several people looked at each other. Now, even Draco, who was full of confidence at the beginning, thinking of risking his life for the glory of the Malfoy family and making his father proud of him, couldn't help but start to feel anxious. Wait, it's still too late to go back. As soon as he turned around, a sudden figure emerged from the bushes, causing everyone to scream in surprise. Simo immediately pulled out his wand, looked at the big snake that was as thick as a bowl, and was about to use the floating spell to blow up the opponent. But at the next moment, a hand suddenly stopped him. "Stop, don't hurt him." Under the gaze of everyone, Harry Potter showed a confident yet shy smile. "I think we're really going to have a guide." Chapter 65 Draco, "Harry, you're a born Slytherin. Please subscribe his." Draco and the three of them had not yet understood what Harry Potter meant by guide. The next moment, he was stunned by Harry Potter's magical operation. I saw a series of creepy sounds coming from the other party's mouth. And the next moment, the big green snake that had a snaking body in front of them and was obviously coming towards them with malicious intentions slowly raised its head. Waves of vomiting sounds came from the other party's mouth, and they seemed to have reached some kind of communication with Harry Potter singing beside them. In just a few minutes, the big snake that was originally preparing to attack them took the initiative to move slowly in one direction. "Hurry, follow quickly, it will take us to find the Acromantula, but we must be prepared for battle," that's what it said. Harry happily followed them quickly, but before taking 2 steps, he found that the 3 people behind him were still standing there, motionless. Draco swallowed a mouthful of saliva, as if he understood something in an instant. "Harry Potter, you are a Parseltongue. No wonder. Professor Snape took care of you, a Gryffindor, not just because of your mother." Harry Potter was confused. "What is Parseltongue?" "This thing seems to be marked on my wizard's book. It's about being able to communicate with snakes." Seamus spoke, looking at Harry Potter in front of him nervously and with a complicated expression, as if he had gotten to know him again. "Legend has it that in the wizarding world there is a mysterious dark wizard who was born in Slytherin. He is a Parseltongue. He is the mysterious man that everyone talks about." Draco on the side spoke to add, "Not only is you know who, Harry Potter, but you would never guess that the first head of Slytherin, Salazar Slytherin, was a Parseltongue." "Harry Potter, the Sorting Hat made a very serious mistake. You should be sorted into Slytherin. Parseltongue belongs only to Slytherins." Harry Potter was also stunned on the spot at this moment, and he couldn't help but recall that since the last lecture given by the Silver Devil, he had frequently encountered him by chance. Even as the headmaster of Slytherin, he frequently appears around Gryffindor's dormitory. Professor Snape must have known it a long time ago. "You are a Parseltongue, otherwise it would be impossible for a woman to care so much about you. Professor Harry Potter Snape has never been an emotional person." Draco took a step forward and persuaded the other party seriously. Draco has always been very interested in the legend of Harry Potter, and since they are the same age, Draco doesn't mind becoming friends with him. Of course, the premise is that the other party is no longer Gryffindor. "Harry Potter, you are a born Slytherin." Just when Harry Potter was doubting whether he was really suitable to stay in Slytherin, as Draco said, Neville on the side hastily opened his mouth. "Harry, Malfoy, this is not the time to talk about this. The snake is almost invisible." At this moment, everyone was startled, turned their heads and quickly chased after him. However, even while running, Draco, holding a broomstick in one hand, did not forget to continue persuading him. "Harry, don't be prejudiced against Slytherin. You can ask about it. Slytherin is very united. Even Professor Roman's years at Hogwarts could not prevent Slytherin from winning the House Cup every year." Harry Potter, Neville, who was panting and chasing after several people, looked surprised. "Stop Slytherin? Why does Professor Roman want to stop Slytherin from winning the Academy Cup? Isn't he from Slytherin Academy?" Draco glanced at each other, and then looked at the other two with disdain. "Not everyone related to snakes is in Slytherin. After all, now I am very suspicious of that stinky Sorting Hat." "Why did Harry Potter, a Parseltongue, get sorted into Gryffindor? And why was the powerful Silver Demon King assigned to the Ravenclaw in the Nerd Colony?" Knock knock knock. The Palace of Truth. After a knock on the door, a door on the top floor slowly opened. When Wednesday walked into it, he saw Roman sitting cross-legged next to a huge magic circle burning with dark green flames, maintaining something seriously in the magic circle. As the top alchemy material that was sent to the door on his own initiative, Bloody Baro has stopped howling miserably. But the strong will that has existed for centuries was something Roman didn't expect. "I just took the magic potion and initially mastered the Soul Curse, a power that can directly affect the soul. There are still many theoretical gaps in the application of this power at the level of magic." At this moment, facing the Bloody Baro, who was like a smelly stone in a cesspit, he could only adopt the most stupid method, which was also a waste of energy. "Sure enough, as you said, the entire Hogwarts didn't notice that this sky disappeared. and even Dumbledore didn't have any special reaction. Wednesday said, suddenly paused slightly, and his expression gradually became weird. Our Professor Dumbledore seems to be in a very uncomfortable mood today. I heard from some paintings in the college and from Helena. He seems to be having some trouble with Professor Flitwick. Unhappy. Hearing this, Roman, who was activating the magic circle with all his strength and performing alchemy, slightly raised the corner of his mouth with a disdainful arc. He's afraid. Wednesday nodded, naturally understanding that the he Roman was talking about was not Professor Flitwick, who seemed to be more vulnerable. On the contrary, the person Roman was afraid of was none other than Dumbledore, who was called the greatest white wizard of this century by the wizarding world. When Wednesday thought about the cold chill that he felt when he passed by Dumbledore when he entered the academy today, he not only did not feel the slightest fear, but also became very excited. The feeling of losing control is uncomfortable, and it is still like this to watch helplessly. The people around you who should support you have turned their backs on you and chosen another path. Moreover, this path is in the eyes of everyone wide and flat, leading directly to the direction of the legendary wizard. Roman murmured, a smile full of contempt for Dumbledore. No matter how powerful a person is, unless he uses evil spells to turn everyone in the world into his own puppet. Otherwise, there will always be uncontrollable things happening. As it happened, Roman naturally recognized this early. That was why there was the previous Hogwarts Arena challenge, where one person suppressed the entire British wizarding world, leaving fear but also bringing death. Then when everyone was forced to choose to obey, Yinmeng again and again offered an olive branch that these people could not refuse. He even publicly stated that he was not only not worried that these people who hated him would one day become powerful and kill him, the Silver Demon King. Such a great magic, since this fool is willing to teach it to us, why don't we learn it? Of course I didn't give in. I was just accumulating strength and waiting for a perfect opportunity to retaliate. I'm not after the Silver Demon King, but I may be able to get more power from him in this way. I still want to kill this demon in the end. Thoughts like this are the most appropriate thoughts in the hearts of the vast majority of the British wizarding community today, who pay respect and surrender to Roman. Whether you are deceiving yourself or others, or you are really bearing the burden of humiliation. At least, Roman's influence in Hogwarts now has, to some extent, truly suppressed Dumbledore, who is the official principal. On the other hand, look at this great white wizard. Wednesday, you said, is time really a silent blade? It makes the strong hesitate, and it also makes people who should be smart become stupid. Roman murmured, looking at the soul-inducing lamp, whose ghostly light kept swaying in the magic circle. The next moment, the blazing green flames instantly became more intense. Fake. Roman Kulski. You must not die well, you must not die well. Those who play with souls will not end well. No. On the top floor of the Palace of Truth, Bloody Baro let out a shrill howl. The eerie and terrifying atmosphere also spread deep in the Forbidden Forest. Harry, is there really a necromantula here? Did that snake really tell you that? Draco held the wand in one hand and looked around nervously. After all, the situation was somewhat beyond their expectations. While following the big snake along the way and avoiding a lot of trouble, Harry and the others had to accept the cruel reality that they had entered the most dangerous moment of the Forbidden Forest. The sunlight that rarely penetrates into the depths of the Forbidden Forest becomes even more minimal with the arrival of dusk. As a result, at this moment, several people had to hold up their wands and cast fluorescent spells. Explore your surroundings slowly. Facing Draco's question, Harry was a little unsure at this moment. According to what the big snake had said, the area they were in now was near the Acromantula's lair. The other party even told them not to go too deep and just look around. The population of Acromantulas is not small and so on. This ability to obtain information from snakes immediately filled Draco and others with admiration and desire, especially Draco as a Slytherin, as the son of Lucius, a former Death Eater. Although at this moment he did not know that his father had also worked for a mysterious man. But he also accepted a lot of Slytherin ideas. Among them, Lucius's admiration for Parseltongue also reached Draco. And just when Draco was slightly distracted, a series of dense and creepy sounds suddenly frightened him. Harry, did you hear something? It seems like something is coming. A lot. Draco's face turned slightly pale, and the wand in his hand trembled slightly in the trembling weak fluorescence. The next moment, balls reflecting the jet black luster filled the darkness like a flood, instantly occupying it. The sight of several people. God. Draco stared at it blankly. It was only about the size of a mulcar, with jet black fur all over its body, and even more ferocious eyeballs. There is no doubt that the snake did not deceive them. They had really entered the Acromantula's lair. 4 wizards who broke into the Forbidden Forest without listening to the Hogwarts professors. A deep voice sounded. When several people looked up, they were shocked to find an even larger Acromantula, calmly standing in the middle of several big trees, in a cave made of spider webs. The gloomy eyes stared at Harry Potter and the others below. It's a pity that you will become a delicious snack for my children. Aragog, the Acromantula, said that the next moment, the Acromantulas around him suddenly turned like a herd of crazy cattle, waving their poisonous teeth fiercely towards them. Harry and others gathered around to kill him. The flames are blazing. A magic spell was issued from Harry Potter's wand, and when a circle of flames rose up, Several people didn't even have time to relax and shouted hurriedly, "Run! Run on the broom!" Among the people who came back to their senses in shock, Draco immediately sat astride his broom, and without waiting for Harry Potter to react, he grabbed Seamus, who was standing beside him without a broom. "I won't take this guy Longbottom with me." Looking at the few people flying high into the sky in the blink of an eye, Aragog roared sharply. "Get em!" Harry and the others, who had just taken off and quickly shuttled through the dense jungle, raised their heads again and were shocked to discover that crossbreeds were falling from the sky with their silk threads hanging on them. "Be careful, release your magic quickly, attack quickly!" Draco yelled in collapse. However, such an exciting scene, as well as the acromantula that passed by him dangerously, frightened Simo behind him, and he was instantly confused. "What magic?" Draco was furious. "What difference does it make to you?" "Attack!" Click. The next moment, looking at the acromantula coming towards him in the darkness with its webs dangling, Seamus Finnegan finally waved his staff. Wingardium Leviosa. Boom! A dazzling fluorescent light instantly exploded on the acromantula, and the huge airwave shocked Draco, who was riding the broom. His eyes were stunned and he almost hit his head against the tree. But the next moment, Draco gritted his teeth as he looked at Harry Potter, who was also riding a broom, swinging from side to side in the winding trees, throwing away all the spiders that wanted to attack them. "Harry, we can't just go back empty-handed. The eggs. We need to bring the eggs back." Hearing this, behind him was Nevelyn, Kianzahao, Barton, who was releasing a levitating spell and controlling an acromantula, waving it in the air like a mallet. Harry glanced at. "Look around." He immediately gritted his teeth. "Go back. The spider eggs must be in their nest." Boom. "Albus, Harry Potter, they haven't come back yet." At Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, the door to Dumbledore's office was opened directly by Professor McGonagall. Professor McGonagall, who looked worried, just walked in and saw the same person standing by the window. Dumbledore looked in the direction of the Forbidden Forest. "Albus, will Roman really be watching them? I don't seem to have seen him today." Dumbledore frowned, but shook his head slightly. Turning his head to look at the towering Palace of Truth, Roman's excellent alchemy and magic skills made this palace rise from the ground. No matter what happened inside, it was not them. Can be sensed. Just when Dumbledore was hesitating whether to enter the Forbidden Forest and bring these little wizards back, it was getting dusk on the horizon, but there were bursts of fierce horse neighing. When he looked up, he saw cars pulled by flying horses, speeding from outside Hogwarts. Dumbledore's brows furrowed deeply after he got a little closer and saw the family crest flying above. "Is it someone from the school board? Damn it! Lucius must have known about little Malfoy. I'm afraid there's going to be a big problem now." The grounds of Hogwarts. Dumbledore looked at the smiling figure coming down from the carriage and the familiar figure of Lucius, and a look of doubt suddenly flashed in his eyes. "Ha ha, Professor Dumbledore, coming to Hogwarts at this time is indeed a bit intrusive for us, but you don't need to be nervous. We are not here for schoolwork," Lucius said with a smile on his face, which made Professor McGonagall beside him feel embarrassed. "Well, it seems that Mr. Lucius is here to see little Malfoy, right?" Unexpectedly, Lucius shook his head. "We are here to find Professor Roman. I hope he hasn't rested yet." Chapter 66 Dumbledore's Sowing Dissension, the love between the little snake and the lion. Please subscribe. Looking for Roman. Professor McGonagall was startled, but just as she was about to explain something, suddenly, Dumbledore on the side suddenly spoke. "If you are visiting Professor Roman, then it is very likely that there is something unlucky." Looking at Lucius and others who were confused, Dumbledore looked at everyone with confusion, and then slowly shook his head. "It seems that little Malfoy has not told your further what she is going to do recently. However, I also understand his thoughts. After all, entering the Forbidden Forest, and entering the depths of the Forbidden Forest, from the terrifying acromantula bringing back spider eggs from the nest is obviously a major event that will cause concern to the family." Water? Sure enough, when these words came out, Lucius, who was still smiling at first, thinking that if he and others succeed in finding Roman today, they and their pure-blood families will be glorious in the future, Lucius suddenly looked stunned. "Professor Dumbledore, I don't understand what you mean." "You mean, Draco went deep into the Forbidden Forest? Looking for acromantula eggs? God, why would he do such a thing?" Lucius asked loudly with a look of horror and disbelief. However, Dumbledore smiled and waved his hand. "Don't worry, Mr. Lucius, little Malfoy and the others just accepted a mission from Professor Roman and need to enter the depths of the Forbidden Forest. That kind of place is indeed a dangerous place for little wizards, especially those who are only in the first grade. Extremely dangerous. But we haven't seen Professor Roman show up all day. I guess he must be secretly protecting little Malfoy and the others." On the side, Professor McGonagall looked at Dumbledore in surprise, who gave her a strong sense of weirdness. She didn't know why, but for the first time in her history, she felt something sinister about her old friend. "Is this comforting Lucius and the others? It sounds like giving eye drops to Roman, the silver demon." You know, Roman's reputation in Hogwarts during this period has already shaken Dumbledore quite a bit, especially when the other party has an honorary principal granted by the school board and the Ministry of Magic. Dumbledore's inaction, and Roman's constant use of new gadgets and superb spells. Contrasts form in the hearts of every little wizard every moment. Even Professor McGonagall has felt a lot of pressure from the recent Professor Flitwick, as a traditional Hogwarts professor, even though the two have different teaching styles. However, in terms of popularity, there is not much difference. After all, no little wizard would like the homework assigned after class. And it just so happens that every Hogwarts professor will make more or less arrangements at the end of class. However, starting yesterday, the enthusiasm shown by the little wizard who finished the class at Professor Flitwick made other Hogwarts professors full of doubts and at the same time felt a lot of pressure. Not just Dumbledore, but all the Hogwarts professors were stressed. However, Professor McGonagall never expected that Dumbledore's first action against Roman would be in such a way. Albus. Professor McGonagall was about to say something, but was stopped by Dumbledore's look. The latter looked in front of him again, looking at the pureblood wizard family members in the Palace of Truth with a look of surprise. Suddenly there seemed to be some sigh. Lucius, I have to say that little Malfoy is really a very good child. He is very responsible and has set his own goal with a strong will that your father gave him. It would have never been Malfoy's turn. Having said this, Dumbledore sighed and shook his head. This time, Lucius, who was already worried and anxious, became even more anxious. Professor Dumbledore, what is the reason? I heard Draco say that although the bounty tasks in their Wizard's book, given by Professor Roman are very numerous, they will not be given unless the strength is reached. Open. Why would he take on such a dangerous mission? Dumbledore looked at the other person with regret. Lucius, this was all Malfoy's own choice. At that time, he stood up and took the initiative to receive this dangerous weapon from Professor Roman without anyone expecting it. As for the mission, as for the purpose ... he said he wanted to make the Malfoy family a great wizarding aristocracy. Lucius. He staggered back 2 steps in disbelief. If Jason Vincent hadn't hurriedly supported him, he would have fallen directly to the ground at this moment. Dumbledore was here at this moment, but he didn't give the other party any time to doubt. Slowly recounted what happened in the Hogwarts restaurant yesterday. When it came to Draco taking the initiative to ask for help, he also had an expression praising the young man's courage, praising Draco's courage and courage. This made Lucius even more heartbroken. That's enough. It's already dusk, and the depths of the Forbidden Forest are extremely dangerous, and yet you, Dumbledore, as the headmaster of Hogwarts, are still standing here leisurely. Jason snorted, interrupting Dumbledore's chatter. However, the latter showed no shame at all and spread his hands. Mr. Vincent, you seem to be a little too harsh on me, an old guy. Besides, don't you admire Professor Roman very much? You even took the initiative to give him the title of honorary principal. This resentment that anyone could hear made everyone present fall silent. Fortunately, there are some people who are still sane. Okay, let's go quickly and see if Professor Roman is in the Palace of Truth. If not, then there is a high probability that he is hiding in the dark and protecting Draco and the others, as Professor Dumbledore said. If that's the case, with Professor Roman's strength, Draco and the others will definitely not be in any danger. The words of the head of the Rosier family instantly woke up the melancholy and self-reproaching Lucius. Ignoring the resentful Dumbledore here, Lucius quickly led everyone towards the Palace of Truth. The huge Eye of Truth at the top of the Palace of Truth is like a bright moon emitting powerful magic power even in the dark night. Lucius and others stood in front of the palace gate, hesitated for a moment, then gritted their teeth and knocked on the door. After a long moment of silence, under the nervous gaze of Lucius and others, the door slowly opened. This is not a good time for visitors, Chief Malfoy, and these unimportant gentlemen. Wednesday was wearing a long black dress and standing at the door, even though she didn't have any magic power on her body. Facing these wizards who are considered top in the wizarding world, there is no intention of giving them any face. Sorry, Miss Adams, no offense, but we do have a very important matter and want to meet with Professor Roman. There is really no way, Wednesday said calmly. Professor Roman is currently busy with the work at hand and will not accept your visit. Gentlemen, if you leave now, I estimate that you will still have a barely complete sleep. With that said, Wednesday was ready to close the door. However, the words she spoke made everyone present take a breath. Wait, so Professor Roman is in the palace now? Wednesday frowned. Otherwise, I think I just made it very clear. Even if Professor Roman is in the palace, he will not see you. He is very busy now. Looking at the tightly closed door in front of me, Jason and others standing next to Lucius looked at each other in confusion. Roman was here, and above their heads, they also saw the talking bird snake beside Roman, floating left and right around the Eye of Truth at the top of the palace. That is to say, damn it, little Malfoy and the others are not protected by any wizards. This bad news brought Lucius's already strong psychological defense to the verge of collapse. I thought about when I met Draco a few days ago. He had a serious look on his face, saying that he wanted to make the Malfoy family a great wizarding noble and a strong bloodline in family affairs. All kinds of pictures made him couldn't help but tremble his hands and slowly touch the wand in his arms. Albus, what on earth are you thinking? It's not like you can do that kind of thing just now. At the same time, Professor McGonagall also looked at Dumbledore in front of him with a strange expression. It's unbelievable. Although they were a little far away, after releasing a small magic spell, The two of them could hear the situation over clearly. Roman did not send any protective force. You're going to kill them. Minerva, I think what will kill them is the Professor Roman you call them, and their own inability to endure temptation. While Dumbledore walked quickly towards the direction of the Forbidden Forest, he vehemently retorted. Haven't you discovered it yet? The Silver Demon King never cares whether these little wizards will die in the Forbidden Forest. He will just keep throwing out temptations one after another, making the lost wizards throw away their precious things for these things. Life. I just wanted to warn you, but I never thought that he really wasn't prepared for any safety measures. Just when everyone was about to enter the Forbidden Forest and prepare to rescue, suddenly, a faint rumbling sound came from the distance, causing everyone's footsteps to pause. Then, everyone's expressions changed drastically in an instant. Damn, something went wrong. It's the direction deep into the Forbidden Forest, that place. Hagrid, who had just ran out of his hut, looked nervous and was wearing a long apron. Hagrid, is that direction over the area the Acromantula calls? Dumbledore asked. Hagrid glanced at him and nodded nervously. Task for flowers. Yes, that side is indeed the direction of the Acromantula, but why does it seem like there is movement to release the spell over there? What happened? Professor McGonagall looked at the big man with an ugly expression. Hagrid, you are a gamekeeper and you live at the entrance of the Forbidden Forest. Don't you even know that Harry Potter and the others entered the Forbidden Forest this morning? What on earth are you doing? Not having time to pay attention to Hagrid, whose expression changed greatly, Professor McGonagall and the others quickly rushed towards the Forbidden Forest. When they were about to carry out rescue, a voice suddenly came. Wait, nobody can go in. When everyone turned their heads, they saw a gloomy look on their faces. Lucius stood up slowly. Walter? Lucius, little Malfoy is inside. That's your only son. That's his choice too. Lucius roared, his eyes filled with bloodshot eyes. He is my pride. But it is his own choice. Either die in the Forbidden Forest, or complete the mission and bring back what the Silver Devil needs. I believe my son will be able to experience it. Professor McGonagall couldn't understand. You are crazy. No matter what, even if you refuse to rescue Draco, we will not give up our few Gryffindors. With that said, McGonagall took the lead and rushed into the Forbidden Forest. Watching the other party's leaving figure, the pureblood wizards couldn't help but look at Lucius beside them. At this moment, even they didn't know how Lucius got there. Draco is the other party's only son, and he is also his biological son. At this moment, deep in the Forbidden Forest, in the lair of the Acromantula, Draco and others were covered in sticky spider silk. At the door of an Acromantula's lair, Harry Potter and Seamus were waving their wands nervously, driving away the swarm of pitch-black Acromantulas that were dripping in like a tide from outside. Zero. I got it. Harry, retreat quickly. If you don't leave, you really won't be able to leave. Draco and Neville each held 2 grey Acromantula eggs in their arms, ignoring the spider silk above their heads, and shouted hurriedly. Seeing this, Harry immediately increased the intensity of his flaming spell and at the same time, he immediately sat astride the prepared broomstick. Wingardium Leviosa. As soon as Draco sat on the broom, he packed the spider eggs in his arms, immediately took out his wand, and cast a floating spell on the remaining spider eggs in the hole. Densely packed spider eggs flew over their heads, which immediately distracted the Acromantulas who were originally intent on attacking them. Call out. In the dark night, 2 flying broomsticks broke through the thick top of the tree canopy and reached the sky above the Forbidden Forest. Yes, Harry Potter, we succeeded. Ha 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 ha. His golden hair was messy, and spider silk and leaves were stuck together. Draco's image was completely lost at this moment, but everyone's situation was not much better. Harry Potter also had a smile on his face. 4 people and 2 broomsticks flew towards Hogwarts in the distance under the black night sky. At the same time, they couldn't help but think of the exciting experience in the Forbidden Forest today. Harry Potter couldn't help but look in Draco's direction. There is no doubt that the other party's performance today has refreshed his understanding of Slytherin. As if he felt something, Draco turned his head slightly and looked at each other. Harry, there is no doubt that if you participate in Quidditch, you will be a very good player. You are so handsome today. Ha ha ha. Sitting behind him, Simo, whose face was full of grey and black, also spoke. Then what do you think of my exploding levitating spell? Ha 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 ha. So cool. Guys like you should come to Slytherin. The wind in the Forbidden Forest in the dark night was biting, but the divisions couldn't feel any chill at all at this moment. Just as they were flying towards Hogwarts, they saw Professor Dumbledore and McGonagall anxiously arriving. Oh, Merlin, I really feel like crying when I see you are okay. On the outskirts of the Forbidden Forest, Professor McGonagall stepped forward and grabbed Harry Potter and the others. The worried look in his eyes made even Draco, a Slytherin, feel slightly ashamed. Okay, forget about that mission. It's all Professor Roman's trick. It seems I have to have a good chat with Minister Fudge of the Ministry of Magic. A place like the Forbidden Forest is absolutely. The little wizard cannot be allowed in, not even at Roman's request. While Professor McGonagall was still chattering, Dumbledore was looking at Draco aside. Mr. Malfoy, your father is very worried about you. I hope you have realized the horror of the Forbidden Forest, and understand what prohibited trade items are. Draco and the others looked at each other, and it was obvious that neither Professor McGonagall nor Dumbledore was the one. None of them thought that they could complete the task set by Roman. They just thought they entered the area where the Acromantula was, and then ran out in fear. Draco and Harry looked at each other. At this moment, a consensus was quietly reached. Chapter 67 The Eternal Bloodman Barrow, The Devil's Reward Time Subscription. Oh, thank God. Harry, on the outskirts of the Forbidden Forest at night, under the reflection of the huge Eye of Truth at the top of the Palace of Truth. The slightly desolate night was broken by Hagrid's loud voice. Lucius, who was surrounded by people from pureblood wizard families, suddenly raised his head. Next moment, before Hagrid's huge body rushed in front of Harry and the others, Lucius' figure suddenly appeared in front of Draco with a crash. Without waiting for the latter to react, the next moment he suddenly hugged the other person into his arms. It seems that our Mr. Lucius still can't worry about little Malfoy after all. If I were you, I wouldn't continue to let the Silver Devil do whatever he wants and torment these little wizards who don't understand everything yet. Dumbledore's voice sounded faintly. However, Lucius was not interested in paying attention to this old guy at this moment. After groping around Draco for a long time, he finally breathed a sigh of relief after confirming that he was not injured. Okay, Mr. Draco, and Harry, you guys, as for how to deal with the matter of you entering the depths of the Forbidden Forest, I will discuss it with Principal Dumbledore and come up with a result. You will be notified tomorrow. As for you now, I think it's better to go back to your dormitory quickly, wash up and have a good rest. Professor McGonagall looked serious. He has once again returned to the unsmiling headmaster Gryffindor that everyone remembers. However, at this moment, a slightly frivolous voice came from the grass on one side. Good evening everyone, such a lively night is rare in Hogwarts. After all, when I went to Hogwarts alone at night, there were not so many people accompanying me. Roman. Seeing this figure, Professor McGonagall's unhappy expression instantly became angry. Like an angry lioness, she stood in front of Harry and the others in an instant, glaring at 513 Roman's face without a trace of guilt. Roman Kulski, you are taking human life lightly. If Harry and the others were not lucky enough, have you ever thought about what would have happened today? That's an Acromantula, a highly poisonous Acromantula that eats human flesh, and there are a group of them. Do you f***ing know what you're doing? Professor McGonagall, who pays attention to conversation, even cursed. One can imagine how disgusted Roman is at this moment in the eyes of the other party. The most wrong thing I did in my life was to put the sorting hat on your head. I should have tried my best to prevent Dumbledore from agreeing to your application to study at Hogwarts! Professor McGonagall said through gritted teeth, and Dumbledore on the side also took a step forward. Professor Roman, regarding the extremely dangerous inducement mission you issued today to the first-year Mr. Malfoy and several other young wizards, I will file a lawsuit with the British Ministry of Magic. This has obviously gone beyond what you said before. The scope of reasonable wizard motivation teaching. Seeing this old guy acting like a good old guy, Roman curled his lips in disdain. He looked at Lucius, who was holding his son Draco and was silent. So, as a member of the school board, Mr. Lucius, do we also think so? Everyone looked at Lucius. The latter suddenly shook his head without hesitation. No, I think all of Professor Roman's actions are within reasonable limits. There was no so-called out-of-range behavior as Professor Dumbledore said tonight. Mr. Malfoy, Draco almost died deep in the Forbidden Forest. You are also a wizard born in Hogwarts. You should be very aware of the horrors in the Forbidden Forest. Professor McGonagall looked at Lucius in disbelief and questioned. However, the latter seemed to have entered a certain state, slowly shaking his head with firm eyes. Of course I know the situation in the Forbidden Forest. I even went into the Forbidden Forest to collect some special potions for Professor Roman back then. The Forbidden Forest is indeed dangerous, but I believe Professor Roman can agree with my son Draco. It must have been thought that he possessed the qualities necessary for the task. Draco, who was held in his father's arms, suddenly showed a happy smile. Harry Potter on the side looked at Draco being held in his father's arms, and couldn't help showing some envy in his eyes. And at this moment, hearing Lucius' words, Roman raised his eyebrows at Lucius in satisfaction. Then he glanced at Draco in the other person's arms. I have to admit that maybe I really have the ability to train, or maybe the Malfoy family lineage really contains some kind of passive skill that can bend and stretch. At this moment, even his own son really almost died in the spider's nest. Lucius still stood firmly on Roman's side in front of Dumbledore and the others. Seeing the undisguised pride on Roman's face, the faces of Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall couldn't help turning livid. Roman smiled slightly. So, our little wizard, will you bring me back what I need? Professor McGonagall, water? What do you still care about at this time? You are fully capable of doing it yourself. Watch it. The furious Professor McGonagall was halfway through speaking, and then burst into foul language again. Looking blankly at Draco with a smile on his face, he took out a grey spider egg from his arms. Following the opponent's movements, at this moment Harry Potter, Neville Longbottom, and Seamus Finnegan, who had a charred face, slowly and carefully took out a spider egg from their arms. At this time, even Dumbledore was stunned. It is completely unbelievable how these little masters did it. That kind of dark environment, that kind of densely packed Acromantula, and other magical creatures that may be encountered. But Draco and others are just first-year wizards at Hogwarts. You, How did you do it? On the side, Hagrid, who was standing farthest away from Roman, couldn't help but exclaimed. As the former owner of the Acromantula Aragog, he knew the other party's descendants very well. They were cruel and vicious, and would never show mercy when facing intruders. Moreover, he had not told Aragog about the existence of Harry Potter and others. The other party would never restrain his descendants and let them bring out these 4 spider eggs. When Draco was finally asked this question, Draco, who had been impatient for a long time, was the first to speak. Review their actions today in the Forbidden Forest. Harry and others on the side also kept adding, Walter, you mean, Harry Potter is a Parselton? However, when these pureblood wizards heard Draco's words about Harry's exchange with the Oki, they allowed him to lead the way and avoid many dangers, and directly arrived near the Acromantula's lair. Everyone gasped in shock. Even Lucius, who had never had a good impression of Gryffindor wizards, couldn't help but stare deeply at Harry Potter, who had Voldemort's scar on his forehead. Professor McGonagall, I must say, I suspect there must be some problem with the sorting hat. Otherwise, Harry would not have been sorted into Gryffindor. He should belong to Slytherin. Snape, who had just come to inquire, heard Draco shouting these words as soon as he appeared. Hearing this, his steps couldn't help but pause slightly, and his sullen old face couldn't help but twitch at this moment. Professor Snape. Seeing Snape appear, Roman had an inexplicable smile on his face. Parseltongue, indeed. All wizards with Parseltongue in history, without exception, were all in Slytherin. Professor Snape, I think we can definitely transfer Harry Potter to Slytherin. That's enough, Roman. Harry's parents are both Gryffindor wizards. There's no way Harry can join Slytherin. Professor McGonagall looked exasperated. Although his heart was beating fiercely, Snape looked completely unmoved on the surface, looking flatly at Roman, who had a joking look on his face. Since my student has brought back what you want, shouldn't Mr. Silver Demon King give him the due reward? Hearing this, everyone's eyes suddenly fell on Roman again. Roman smiled slightly, and with a casual move, the 8-eyed giant spider eggs in the hands of several young wizards were swallowed by the void and disappeared instantly after a surge of black energy. Of course, efforts should be rewarded. This is the philosophy I have always adhered to. However, I think about their rewards. You are not only interested in Professor Snape. If you know that Harry Potter and the others have completed the task, the other little wizards who will be rewarded will also be very interested. Roman turned to look at Dumbledore beside him. Professor Dumbledore, at dinner time tomorrow at the Hogwarts restaurant. As the principal of Hogwarts, I think you still need to be present. Walter? Harry, you mean, you really did it? In the restaurant early the next morning, all the wizards of Gryffindor looked at Harry Potter, who appeared, especially when they heard that they had completed the task issued by Roman. An exclamation suddenly broke the tranquility of this breakfast. Ha ha, it was a bit embarrassing, and it was indeed very dangerous, but fortunately, there was no danger. On the side, Ronald looked at Seamus and Neville, who looked happy. Can't help but pouted. It's a pity that the Silver Devil didn't publish a mission for you in the Wizard's book. Harry, your efforts were completely in vain. Hearing this, Harry, who was still smiling, couldn't help but shrink a little. He glanced at the other party calmly, and said lightly, I'm doing it for my friends, not for rewards. Suddenly, a pair of disdainful looks once again caused Ronald, who had just gained some attention, to suffer a sharp decline in his image in the eyes of everyone. Hermione, who was sitting opposite Harry, looked at Harry and others with smiles on their faces, but he couldn't help but look towards the restaurant, in the direction of Roman. Perhaps he was preparing a reward, but Roman did not show up for breakfast. As if suddenly thinking of something, Hermione suddenly turned her head and looked in another direction. Her face was filled with displeasure. I saw that, as if he was looking towards the seat where Roman was sitting. At the moment in the seat of Slytherin, a girl with short black hair was also looking there expectantly. Slytherin's little bitch. Do you really think that Professor Roman is really interested in you? He only cares about you because your mother and your classmates, Hermione murmured. However, a woman's sixth sense is undoubtedly sensitive, just as Hermione said. When cursing each other lowly, on the Slytherin side, Pansy Parkinson also turned to look over. The 4 eyes are facing each other. Suddenly, there was a faint smell of something burning in the air. However, at this moment, the horns in the eyes of these little wizards. But they were not as busy as they imagined, preparing for rewards. The top floor of the Palace of Truth. In Roman's hand is a dark green smooth gem, which can feel warm and cold in the hand, alternating back and forth. After 2 days of continuous, soul demon curse, burning, the Bloodman Barrow finally completely disappeared from this world. What was left was the one in Roman's hands at the moment. According to his appraisal, its value was not inferior to the existence of the top potion such as Tyrant's Dark Crown. Is this the last step? Wednesday, who was standing on the edge of a pile that was 3 to 4 meters high and looked like a hill, asked curiously. Roman didn't speak, but the magic power on his body gradually began to work. The jade in his hand flew in the air and landed on top of the puppet that Roman had prepared before. The next moment, Roman suddenly began to mutter something. Spells that were so obscure that even Wednesday couldn't tell which language they were in came out from Roman's mouth. Kla la la la. Each book is as thick as a dictionary and can be read automatically without wind. As the pages of the book were turned by magic, golden characters emerged from the pages one by one, like energy snakes composed of words, winding towards the treasure above the doll. Jade comes together. Golden light penetrated into it, stimulating waves of ripples on the surface of the jade. A trace of golden light began to gradually shine in the dark green jade. Elizabeth, who was floating in midair like a ribbon, saw this scene, and her eyes could not help but reveal a bit of madman-like obsession. Hiss. When the master is working, he is like a god descending from the divine world. My god. On the side, Wednesday frowned slightly and just glanced at the other party. Immediately, he was greeted with a somewhat sharp and mean curse. What are you looking at? Chocolate biscuits? If he couldn't kill this guy even with a chainsaw, Wednesday vowed to turn this beast, whose species he couldn't recognize, into snake soup. Bitchy. This day is definitely the most difficult day for the little 1.5 wizards. During this period, except in Professor Flitwick's class that day, a group of young wizards, because what he brought out was said to be the new magic theory from the Silver Demon King, they were able to listen carefully beyond the course. Even Professor McGonagall couldn't make these little wizards become serious in his own class. The tortured day for the little wizard, and the arrival of dinner time also made the professors of Hogwarts breathe a sigh of relief. Among them, young wizards like Draco, who were about to receive mission rewards, had no time to care about the dinner in front of them. He kept looking up at the door of the restaurant. A figure came in, and Draco was about to get up happily. The person who came was Mrs. Hooch, who was in charge of flying lessons. Draco sat down disappointed. Another figure came in. Harry Potter looked up, and Professor Levi walked in with a smile on his face. Although all the little wizards still saluted and said hello, but everyone could see that these little guys were completely absent-minded. Later, when Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, and even Professor Snape, who rarely appeared in the restaurant, had arrived at the restaurant, Roman's figure was slowly disappearing. Has not appeared yet. God, it's already dinner time. Could it be that the Silver Devil hasn't prepared the reward yet, so he's avoiding it? Ronald muttered quietly, and Harry glanced at him and ignored him. Professor Roman must have been delayed by something. I heard that it takes a lot of effort to deal with the Cremanchello eggs. After hearing about Harry's safety, Neville and Seamus nodded and prepared to enjoy the dinner in front of them, although they were also a little worried. However, at this moment, a sound of footsteps suddenly came from the door of the restaurant. Professor Roman, Miss Adams, and Walter? Chapter 68, Mattis rubbing, and Alchemy weapon middle. Fear Gatling. All the little wizards, especially Draco, stood up excitedly when they saw Roman appearing at the door of the restaurant. However, when he saw the strange figure behind the other party, he said the words of greeting, but everyone was stunned on the spot. Hey, what is that? A doll? A metal doll? Wow, doll. She seems to be able to hear me. She is with me. Oh my god, is this alchemy? At the dining table where the professors were at this moment, Dumbledore was also slightly startled when he saw the female metal doll behind Roman. But fortunately, the doll in front of me is larger, more advanced and sophisticated than some of the magic toy shops in Diagon Alley. It is not as visually appealing as Elizabeth, who transformed into Quetzalcoatl at that time and summoned wind and thunder. Impact. After a brief period of shock, Dumbledore and others returned to normal. Roman smiled and waved to these little wizards. Amid the crowd's admiration, he slowly sat down at his dining table like a star in the wizarding world. Since Roman's warning, Quirrell, who was supposed to sit next to him, moved to the corner by himself. Roman and Snape sat next to each other. Nice to see you, Fedu. Snape spoke calmly. When Roman heard this, he looked at him with a deep look. Ever since the lesson at the Palace of Truth that day, Snape had been avoiding him. However, Roman could clearly notice that since Professor Flitwick began to teach some magic theories developed by Roman in class, this old friend of Slytherin also learned to take the initiative like Lucius and the others. Ingratiation. He smiled slightly as a greeting. There was no need to show off, and Roman was not in the habit of being stared at by so many eyes while eating. He waved to Draco, who was already impatient, as well as Neville and Seamus, who were sitting on the Gryffindor seats. Immediately, the three of them quickly ran from their seats to the front. Under the gaze of the entire Hogwarts wizards, each one excitedly stood at the front, waiting for the reward Roman gave them. Everyone looked at the three people with envy. However, few people could feel jealous when they thought that they were facing the terrifying Acromantula swarm. After all, the wizards present are very clear about the terrifying degree of the giant Acromant, especially those senior wizards who have taken relevant magical creature courses. Although they feel that a few people can succeed and are not injured, it is full of incredible. At this moment, he still gave them respectful looks. Feeling the gazes coming from around them, both Draco, who was accustomed to focused gazes, and Master Seamus and Neville, who had never experienced such treatment, couldn't help but become a little restrained. And at this time, Roman slowly stood up from his position. Looking around, he glanced at Dumbledore sitting next to him. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. I'm an idealist, even though I'm what you, and your parents, call the evil Silver Devil. but I still have to say, I highly recommend a word. If you pay, you will get rewards. If you pay the same amount, you will get the same rewards. This is obviously impossible in the wizarding world, but in my case, I must sincerely congratulate you, because with me, you little wizards at Hogwarts will be able to happily enjoy the benefits brought by this ideal. The wonderful feeling. Regardless of whether everyone took his words seriously, Raman looked at the three people standing in front of him, and first set his eyes on Neville Longbottom. Neville Longbottom, for the sake of your parents, you can come to me, the Silver Demon King, whom you don't know. Regardless of the dangers you may encounter, make your request, and bravely risk your life to enter the Forbidden Forest. Deep down, return safely. Faith for the family's recovery. At the risk of losing your life. And the composure he showed during the battle with the Acromantula. Raman slowly raised his hand, and the next moment there was a surge of dark energy, and bursts of bright golden light gradually emerged from it. The main light group slowly floated in front of Neville Longbottom. As a reward for your hard work, I can let you choose any one of these three rewards. The eyes of everyone present were focused on the three light groups that Raman took out. The light dispersed, and the lineup of the three items slowly appeared. Dumbledore and other professors at Hogwarts also stared at these three objects curiously. Feeling the faint energy fluctuations coming from above, their expressions became solemn. Curse Scroll Metis Rubbing is a basic spell that gathers wisdom, can quickly obtain wisdom from books, and improve wizard thinking. Although it is only a basic spell structure, it has strong potential because of its own. I gave it the name of the Goddess of Wisdom Tilda. Just the first treasure instantly shocked the entire audience, especially on Ravenclaw's side. A famous wizard stood up anxiously, raised his head high and looked at the scroll in the dazzling golden light. The vaguely flowing divine light, although it was just a blind trick created by Raman, instantly made these little wizards start to have infinite reverie in their hearts. Why should this kind of treasure be given to Gryffindor? This treasure belongs naturally to the Ravenclaw. An emotion called jealousy and desire was quietly born without anyone expecting it. Next, Raman introduced two other treasures, a bottle of potion and a dagger. A-level potion, Barrow's gift. It can effectively treat the mental damage caused by the Cruciator's curse. One bottle of potion can easily heal two people. You can use it to treat your parents. Alchemy Magic Blade Shadow Spider Waltz. It is engraved with the Differentiation Curse and the Phantom Curse, and has been extracted from the Acromantula venom inside. Using magic power, it can instantly split into 7 real blades and 18 phantoms. Causes a lot of damage to the enemy. Amidst the gasps of air, everyone on the Slytherin side looked at the strange blue-purple dagger floating in front of Raman with fiery eyes. Professor Quirrell, who was hiding in the corner and possessed by Voldemort, was trembling with excitement. God, can we really choose these things? Just give them to this little wizard? At this moment, Quirrell couldn't help but fantasize. What would it be like if his parents were tortured into madness by Death Eaters using the Cruciator's curse? Everyone's focus is on the information about these three treasures. Only Dumbledore, who was sitting nearby, frowned slightly when he heard the name of the potion that Raman took out. He glanced at the walls and ceiling around the restaurant without saying anything. However, an ominous premonition had already arisen in his mind. Among the three treasures, except for the reward that was obviously given to Neville, no one could refuse the other two treasures. Neville, you should choose the scroll. As long as you master the magic spell that Professor Raman said, you can learn potion and save your parents by yourself. Yes, scroll, that is the real treasure. Longbottom, don't listen to those nerds. Choose a dagger. With that thing, Death Eaters will never dare to hurt you again. That dagger will allow you to avenge your parents. Don't listen to the nonsense of those Slytherin guys. You know who is finished. All the Death Eaters have been imprisoned in Azkaban. Nerds, shut up. The scene instantly became chaotic because of the three items that Raman took out. Originally it was none of the business of these little wizards, but at this moment they actually felt a strong sense of involvement. Professor Raman, what on earth are you going to do? Why are you bringing out such a dangerous thing at this time? Dumbledore's face was livid, with an ugly look on his face. However, for the other party's reprimand, Raman did not waver at all, with a joking smile on his face. Professor Dumbledore, have you forgotten who I am? I am Silverlord. I like to seduce people with something. Raman ignored Dumbledore, whose beard was trembling with anger, and looked at Neville Longbottom, who was tangled and dazed, with a smile on his face. So, Neville Longbottom, what are your options? Neville raised his head, hesitated for a while, but couldn't help looking at Raman in front of him for help. This scene made Dumbledore's heart even more angry. Whether it was himself, the headmaster of Hogwarts, or Professor McGonagall, the head of Gryffindor, they were all here, seeking help. Not the two of them. Looking for Raman, the Silver Devil? Professor Raman, I don't know what to choose. Hearing this, the corners of Raman's mouth twitched slightly. He has always been extremely disdainful of the form of the Hogwarts branch. Human beings have always been a complex creature. Cowardly people can become brave when facing great threats, and stupid people will sometimes have flashes of inspiration. How can we use these so-called characters to divide complex people into different colleges, so as to distinguish and label them? For example, Neville Longbottom in front of him, Raman thought that the other party was a combination of Gryffindor and Hufflepuff. Brave and honest, although he has become a bit stupid due to memory impairment. He is very self-aware. I have to say, Mr. Neville Longbottom, I'm very glad that you can understand the character of seeking help from better people when you can't handle it yourself. If I were you, I would choose the spell scroll. Your parents were able to protect you so much back then, so they certainly wouldn't mind waiting for their child to research the potion that can cure him. Hearing this, Professor McGonagall was full of dissatisfaction with Roman's behavior. At this moment, I can't help but feel extraordinarily complicated. On the one hand, Roman despicably used so many temptations to corrupt and seduce the little wizards. On the other hand, the other party gave a pretty good tenderness to such a stupid kid like Neville. Bar bang bang. Professor Flitwick, who was sitting on the seat of Dean Ravenclaw, was even more excited when he saw this scene. His eyes were full of tears and he did not hide the pride on his face. In front of so many people, he just burst out laughing. Laughed. The moment Neville Longbottom obediently chose Scroll of Curse, Matty's rubbing, the scroll turned into bursts of golden light and entered the opponent's mind. Excellent memory rubbing spell. Professor Roman, you have inherited the ability of your mother's memory master very well. Professor Flitwick praised loudly. At this moment, under the stage, those who were slowly closing their eyes and surrounded by golden light. Neville's little wizards all showed envy. Hermione, who was sitting opposite Harry Potter, made no secret of the longing in her eyes. She was originally a person who had a great interest in knowledge, and under the influence of Roman, she was a well-known top student among the first-year little wizards. There is no doubt that such a magic spell that can speed up knowledge acquisition and improve mental power is what she needs most. Just as Neville was absorbing the information inside the scroll, Roman's eyes turned to the next person. Seamus Finnegan. Seamus Finnegan, you have one of the qualities I admire most. You are not from a wizarding family, so you know better than anyone else that strength is what a wizard should be. What you are pursuing, you think that your magic spell talent is not enough, so you are willing to risk your life to become stronger. However, I can tell you clearly, Seamus Finnegan, you are a very good wizard, and you have violent emotions flowing in your blood in magic. You are a natural fighting wizard. The successive compliments came out of Roman's mouth, and Seamus Finnegan, who straightened up excitedly, felt unreal, like falling into a dream. And just before the opponent's body was about to sway and fall to the ground, Roman also took out a reward for the opponent. It's still 3 options, 1 choice. Roman waved his hand, and the next moment 3 golden lights appeared. However, what everyone didn't expect was that these 3 things were not included in the ones Roman had taken out before. The remaining 2 pieces, but 3 brand new items. Spell scroll middle. Clay artist, free, short-lived and gorgeous. This is my summary of this spell. The difficulty of this spell is not low, but the upper limit is very high. You need to learn most of the basic spells here, including the transformation spell, before you can formally learn this spell. Alchemy magic armor middle. Gargoyle plate armor, it has its own protective spell, and also has a magic power recovery effect. When the internal magic power reserve is insufficient, it can use magic power from the wizard or the surroundings. It absorbs magic power from the air and recovers slowly. By the way, it can protect against a killing spell. Snape, who had been silent, his eyes were instantly attracted to the silver-white western plate armor that Roman took out, and his hands under the table could not help but slowly clenched. As for the last item, Manos, Roman said, paused slightly, and looked at another work after the golden light dissipated. No way. In Gryffindor's place, Hermione, who was born into a Mull family, stood up in shock on the spot. Looking in disbelief at the third thing that Roman brought out, it was a big guy who would never be seen in the wizarding world, but would be instantly recognizable in the Mull world. Alchemy weapon middle. Fear Gatling, the prototype is the Gatling gun in the Mull world. After my alchemy transformation, it became the wizard version. It consumes magic power to instantly fire a large weapon. The powerful magic energy bullet, as long as your magic power can support it. Believe me, with it, you can single out an entire group of trolls. If we say that when Roman took out the alchemy blade shadow spider waltz, in front of everyone, Hermione still couldn't understand why the Slytherin guys did that. Such exciting words. Looking at Gatlin, who was engraved with golden patterns on the dark metal background, she couldn't help swallowing. As a Mull, although I haven't seen the incident, I have seen such things in movies. It is completely a harvester on the battlefield. However, today it has been transformed into a wizard version of the army after Roman's transformation. When I think of someone holding an exaggerated Gatling machine gun in the future, they will single out the Ministry of Magic in the wizarding world, overthrow the dragon group, and rob Gringotts. Hermione immediately hugged her head and lay down on the table in distress. Headache. At this moment, she suddenly understood why Professor Roman, whom she admired, was called the Silver Demon King. Even in the so-called Extreme Silver Night more than 10 years ago, she didn't know what happened. Looking at Roman, who had an innocent smile on his face and placed Gatling in front of Seamus Finnegan, she finally understood the phrase dangerous elements that was often said in the Tiger Cult interface. What does it mean? Roman smiled warmly, and under the reflection of the 3 golden lights in front of him, he looked like an angel spreading the gospel. It's still the same condition as Longbottom, Simo Finnegan. Among the 3 rewards, you can take one away.